Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Friday, January 2nd, 2026. And this is the first Market Open of the new year. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you for being here. We are officially in a brand new year. Guess we're starting off 2026. 2025, we had a lot of things happen. We had a lot of momentum, a lot of volatility. Cover the markets every single day. Saw things that I think none of us have ever seen happen in the equity markets, but we are entering a brand new year. Hopefully everyone is happier, healthier, and I'm personally wishing everyone the best going into the new year as we enter into what probably will be, quite frankly, another volatile year that we have to deal with in a variety of different situations. Everyone's year-to-dates probably are basically 0%, and we'll see at the end of the day what the year-to-dates turn into. But it's always a fresh new chance. It's always a new opportunity, a new beginning. There's something intrinsic about the human spirit where you get another chance at doing something. And I don't know what it is. I mean, there's obviously some type of scientific, but also probably spiritual, I guess, example/explanation for why we feel so compelled to a new chance and a new ability to take on life. But we get a chance every year. And if we're lucky enough to be alive every year, lucky enough to see a new year, lucky enough to be with loved ones, family that we actually respect and enjoy being with every single year, then I think we got to take advantage of it. I think that's the punchline. You have to take advantage of these moments. And I am very, very, very grateful every single year. Really, this is the third year of doing this full time. 2024, we started. So started January 2024, January 2025. So January 2026 is the third year of doing this whole thing full time. It's about the fifth year of doing YouTube, but the third year of doing this market show every single day full time. And I am incredibly grateful and honored and blessed to have another opportunity of doing this. And the equity markets, it is a bit of luck that I started analyzing this back in 2022. And since then, we've had one of the most important bull markets in history, but we've also had one of the most nuanced bull markets in history, in which a lot of people didn't think it would be a bull market. So the level of analysis that needs to be there every single day to break down what's actually happening, which I don't think is going to change going into 2026, is something that I'm excited to be here for every single day. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Hopefully everyone enjoyed with family. I just saw my family yesterday and pretty much spent a couple hours with them, talked to them, and now we're back in action. And I think next week we are officially starting, I guess, everyone's grind routine. I mean, most people still probably have days off from works, PTO. A lot of people just, aren't even working for the next couple days. But Monday, I think we officially start and get back into the grind. And yeah, it'll be exciting to be here with everyone today. And Tesla Q4 deliveries should be out in 10 minutes. So we're going to look into those Q4 deliveries and see what happens with Tesla. Before we get started, I just want to read everybody one thing I posted yesterday. This is something that I revisit every single year. It's actually in the back wall. If you guys can see it, there's the poster right there. Brittany, thank you for becoming a channel member. Love you, Britt. Thank you for being here. I got to meet Brittany and her boyfriend, Eddie, in 2025, which was awesome to see them. Hopefully I get to see them. I mean, I will see them at the LA meetup in 2026 for sure. So, Britt, thanks for being here. And I'm wishing you the best and happiest of New Year's. This is a poem that I read 7 years ago. Some of you guys have heard me articulate this poem. For those that haven't, I think it is one of the best ways to start the new year is just reading this poem. This is from a man named Charles Bukowski. He was a poet. He didn't really get to be the poet he wanted to be till he was about 55. So he went through a lot of shit in his life before he finally got to be the guy that he thought he could be. And I think this poem exemplifies the most important elements of life, which is going after the chase. And that chase to me is the chase of a dream, which is one of the most meaningful things to chase. So this is Go All the Way by Charles Bukowski. If you're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. This can mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, and maybe even your mind. It can mean not eating for 3 or 4 days. It can mean freezing on a park bench. It can mean jail. It can mean derision. It can mean mockery, isolation. Isolation is the gift. All the others are a test of your endurance, of how much you really want to do it. And you'll do it despite rejection and the worst odds, and it will be greater than anything else you can imagine. If you're going to try, go all the way. There is no other feeling like that. You will be alone with the gods, and the nights will flame with fire. You will ride life straight to the perfect laughter. It's the only good fight there is. If you're going to try, go all the way. That is my hint of motivation going into 2026. It's the poem that I read every single year. For anyone that is a dream, for anyone that's trying anything, for anyone that's building anything, you got one life. You go all the way, you get another chance, another opportunity, another year to pursue it. Then you don't half-ass anything. Whether it fails or succeeds, the ride to the perfect laughter of life is the attempt. And it has been a joy over the past 5 years to even go for this attempt and build whatever this has become. But it's been the perfect form of laughter because there's no other thing I'd rather imagine doing, and there's no other journey that I'd rather imagine being on. All right, let's get into it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Happy New Year, and let's get started. S&P 500 is up 0.5%. It didn't go all in on BMNR. That is not what that means, even though you guys are the best chat on YouTube, so you will interpret it into going all in on BMNR. At least BMNR is up 3.5%, so that's nice. Maybe 2026 will be a little bit more nice to us than 2025 on BMNR. Robinhood's up 1.64%. Nike's up 0.3%. Nebius is up 4%. Red Cat, Ondas, the drone companies are up. Google's up 1%. CoreWeave's up 2%. Figma's up 1%. Amazon's up a little bit. Nvidia's up 1.4%. You got some more reports on chips out of China that's helping Nvidia. Broadcom up 2%. Palantir up 2%. Bitcoin 89.4. Here's the question to everybody. Do you trust this green or no? Do you trust this green or no? It is a Friday. Now, it is Friday 2026, so we might have a lot more volume coming in, a lot more people starting to trade. I think next week is when it's really going to start. But we're kind of recovering pretty much everything that we lost on what is it? On Friday. Not Friday, Wednesday. Put the green or red poll in the chat. I kind of trust it. I mean, I think it's just a lot of excitement because we have a new year. And quite frankly, that could lead us to like a 1% day on the S&P and reverse everything that happened on Friday. But if that doesn't happen, it is the same old, which is the choppiness of 2025 that's continuing into 2026. I am not convinced that that choppiness for January is going away. However, we've talked a lot about the January effect on the channel, and that should be a relatively strong start to the year if we get into that effect, which would be helping particularly small caps, financials, etc. By the way the year ended, S&P 17%, the Qs 20%, small caps 11%, gold 65%. So, I mean, it was still an incredible year. It's not like it was a year that you can deny in terms of being a third year of the bull market. It just wasn't as much as 20% in the past couple of years. I think there was a lot of tax loss harvesting on Friday. You got Evan right here saying I tax loss harvested half my BMNR, so naturally it will fly now. He's going to have to wait 30 days to get more exposure to BMNR if he wants that tax loss harvest to actually count. So there is a world in which a lot of people might end up having to wait to buy some of the names they wanted to buy in order to count that tax loss harvest. But if these names start running for whatever reason, I mean, maybe people jump in because they're afraid they're going to miss. So I don't know. It's hard to give a prediction. You got that government shutdown that's still looming potentially. We are now 4 weeks away from a decision on if we will get the government shutdown and if it's going to play out. Kalshi is giving it still a 29% chance. It was 37% a couple weeks ago, so it's down a little bit, which is good. 30%, though 29% still not something we can necessarily ignore. And that's, I think, going to be the next catalyst up or down if we do get a shutdown or if we don't. Now, Tesla delivery should be happening really soon. The street consensus, let me pull this up, I believe is 450,000 or 445,000. Rivian just reported. Rivian did 9,745. They produced 10,974. Full year deliveries 42,247. Okay, so Rivian just did 9,700, 42,000 in total. For Tesla, trying to get the actual delivery numbers, but I believe it's 445. I believe it is 445. And that's what the street's saying. Now, Tesla released their own delivery numbers on the street. Their consensus is 422, 850, if I'm not wrong, which is weird because Tesla's never like open sourced their own delivery numbers, but I guess that's what they're doing this time. And they're trying to, potentially change how the street is thinking of it. Last time we had 497, which was the number, and we had 12.5 gigawatts of energy that was deployed. So I don't think they're going to beat 497 this time. Remember last time you had the catalyst of that EV tax credit that was ending. Energy, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Q4 was strong for energy. Maybe they can beat the energy number. At least year over year is what matters. And year over year, I think that's up 100%. So the question is, can that happen going into this Q4 for for 2026. So we will know about that probably in is it 9? It's usually 9:10. It might be right at 9 though. All right, so we'll wait. It'll be probably 5-10 minutes, and we'll see what ends up playing out. All right, so that's what we have for Tessie. Now, in terms of headlines this morning, there's a variety of stocks that are moving, a variety of different macro things that are going on. Baidu is the story of the morning, and shout out to Dougie. I know he in the chat has been on this stock for a while. 10.52%. Baidu is taking out its AI chip unit and making them go public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So Baidu is a broader tech company in China, AI company. The shares are jumping 9.4% as they are getting rid of their artificial intelligence chip unit, but spinning it out into a new company. Jefferies analysts are estimating that valuation will be 16 to 23 billion, which implies a valuation to Baidu of 9 billion to 13 billion, given their stake in the unit, which is just an increase in the overall book value of the company. So, I mean, I guess it's a meaningful reason for the stock to jump. I thought there would be something more important than just them spinning out the chip unit. But it's bullish. And if you own this, it's bullish. And it's also helping all of the Evan says 902. Okay. So in about 5 minutes, we'll probably know for Tesla's numbers. It's helping all the China names like Alibaba. I'm hearing a lot of chatter, by the way, of look at Bob up 4% of China being the key theme for 2026. Or at least one of the key themes. One of the main arguments right there is simply put that China is stimulating more than every other country in the world. And so, that could be a reason potentially Tim Cook bought some Nike because he knows that the Chinese are going to have a lot more money to buy these sneakers in a company that has not had a lot of China revenues come in. Nike right there up another 0.27%. It's done well since it bottomed at around 57 a couple weeks ago after earnings. Now it's at almost 64. So maybe Nike and some of the Chinese plays do have that tailwind behind them, but I think it's going to take at least another earnings cycle to see if those companies do play out. S&P 500 right there up 0.54%. In the pre-markets as well. I see from a decent chunk of you that Tom Lee posted another BM&R video. And in this video, I believe he explained why to vote. Yeah, Tom Lee explains authorized shares, increases in votes, yes. All right, so we'll watch this later. It's a 2-minute video, and we'll take a look at it. But this is good because you kind of needed an explanation. Last time all we got was how to vote, not necessarily the reason why we should be voting. So that's important, and we'll take a look at that as well. Yeah, the Nike CEO also bought some shares last week, and that was important. Not if they invade Taiwan. Well, the China-Taiwan stuff continues to become weird. I mean, China says this every year when it comes to Taiwan, and I'll show what they tweeted over the weekend, but it's essentially this idea of reunification with Taiwan is inevitable. It's just every time they tweet this, it's like, it's not good to see it every time. By the way, Tesla official numbers, Wall Street's expecting 422. This is as per Sawyer Merritt. 422,800. I thought Wall Street was at 440. Does anyone have the actual Wall Street number? I thought it was at 440, but Sawyer, who's like one of the best Tesla sources, is saying 422. So if I thought that was Tesla's internal number, not Wall Street's number, but if that's becoming the official number, then that's what they got to beat, which is going to be important because they need to beat these numbers. But then again, do they really need to does anyone really care anymore if they beat the numbers? It's like, I feel like we've evolved so much from it, but then again, we also care. This is what the China embassy tweeted, by the way. We Chinese on both sides of the Taiwan Strait share a bond of blood and kinship. The reunification of our motherland, a trend of the times, is unstoppable. That's what President Xi said in his New Year's message. Now, he said the exact same thing in 2025. So he repeats this every year. It's just, it's scary every time they say, because it's like, is this the year where they really try to reunify? And that would, definitely not be the best for the equity markets, but we're going to have to see and keep up with the story going into 2026. Okay, so 2 minutes. We should be getting these numbers. In 2 minutes, I'll put Tesla on the screen and see what we'll get. Tesla right now, where are we at? 458. I'm going to guess 430. 431. That's my guess, 431. I'm going to guess 431. Random guess, but I guess it'll be a little bit above 442 or 422 if that's the official number, 431. And that's what we got. Stock's moving a little bit right here pre-market. We should be getting the number very soon. I have their investor page open. We'll see if we get this. Okay, Q4 expectations, 422.8, which would be negative 15% quarter over quarter. Model 3, 404, negative 16% quarter over quarter. That's the expectation. And then other models, 17.9 quarter over quarter. That's the expectation. So, yeah, 422.8, that is the number we are expecting officially. Yeah, put in the chat what number you think it could be. 457 here, 1.74% in the pre-market. When does the Clarity Act get passed? That's a good question. I actually don't know. I think it's supposed to happen earlier in the year, though, but we'll try to get the answer on that. Okay, I don't have the number yet. It should be out like now. 418. I was off. See, okay, so Bloomberg is saying the estimate was 440. All right, so everyone reporting that the estimate was 422, that was Tesla's number. The actual Wall Street estimate, I knew I saw that was 440. Looking like the numbers at 418, that's an ugly miss. Stock's not reacting. Stock's actually up 1.83%. You're not seeing really that much ugliness. I mean, it's down from 458 to 457, but that's nothing. That's your number, 418. So even if you take Tesla's internal projection, 422, over Wall Street's projection at 440, I mean, yeah, you're getting an ugly miss. But again, how much do people really care about this number? Like this, yes, it's a car company. Yes, they need to sell cars, but I don't know if this is the end all be all with how people are going to be trading Tesla. Tesla basically flat. I mean, it's holding this 1.6% that it's had over the past couple of hours in the pre-market. Yes, 902 was spot on. That's crazy that it's 902 every time. But now we know it's 902. All right, that's your number, 418. 418. Let me get the exact numbers as well. Let me get energy as well. Let's pull this up. Okay, here's the press release. Energy was 14.2 gigawatts. Wow. That's not only up year over year, that's up quarter over quarter. A record deployment. They produced 434. They delivered 418. Model 3 was 406 and Model Y. Other models, dude, the Cybertruck has got to be the worst decision in Tesla's history. And I say that liking the Cybertruck. Like, I want to buy a Cybertruck. I don't need a Cybertruck, but it would be nice to just drive around that thing. I also just think it's overkill. But like, if I had a Cybertruck, I wouldn't be complaining. But the fact that no one wants to buy this truck shows how like bad of a decision it was to focus on that for 5 years. 11,642 other models, 406,000 Model 3, Model Y, total 418. Delivery is 1.636. That was Tesla. And if we go to last year, this quarter, they did 495 Q4 2024, and total deliveries for 2024 were 1.789 million. So obviously it's declining year over year, but again, the question is how many people genuinely care. Let's get some more coverage on this as well.
The total is 418,227. The total number for all of 2025, 1.63 million vehicles. That's a decline of about 8.5% compared to where the company was in terms of deliveries in 2024. Energy deployments, a record of 14.2 gigawatt hours. And always what people are interested in is when will they hear from Elon Musk? It will be on January 28th. After the bell, that's when the company will be reporting its Q4 results. And that's likely when we will hear from Elon Musk. So again, Tesla deliveries coming in shy of expectations, guys, at 418,227.
To be impacting the stock price. I mean, Phil, weren't we once thinking, weren't there once estimates that could get them up close to 2 million deliveries?
3 million.
Yes. Yeah, that was the expectation. I would say probably in the middle of last year, right before the presidential election. Then once you had the election, and it was pretty clear that the Trump administration was going to take away EV incentives, which they did at the end of the third quarter. That's when everybody started dialing back their expectations. And then you saw increased competition in China. the pricing war that's going on when it comes to EVs in China, and huge increase in competition in Europe as well. That's really when people started dialing back their expectations. But there's no doubt the 1.63 million, this sets up the question, David and Sarah, of whether or not for 2026, will Tesla deliveries be in that range or will they grow? Because they came out with what many called a lower priced vehicle, which was really sort of a stripped down Model 3. And there's no indication here in the United States that that lower priced model has spurred sales. Now, we should also point out, they don't break down in this report sales by regions, but when you talk with analysts who track very closely Tesla sales around the world, the rest of the world, smaller markets that people aren't really paying attention to, whether it's Thailand, whether it's Israel, South Africa, whatever it might be, the sales in that area, that rest of the world bucket is growing quickly. And I suspect when we finally get all the numbers crunched, you're going to see deliveries last year for that region well up over 30-40%, probably in the fourth quarter up more than 50%.
And that is fair, because if you take a look at this, in France and Sweden, Tesla registrations fell in December, but in Norway, they were up 89%. So 71% down in Sweden, 66% down in France, 13% lower in Portugal, 44% in Spain, in Norway, 89%. So obviously across the world, you do have different places where people are just not buying a Tesla, particularly in Europe. But you have other parts where Teslas are getting a lot more momentum. So yeah, I don't think this report matters. At the end of the day, if you're buying Tesla stock trading at 200 times earnings, it's not because of 5 or 10,000 more deliveries. It has to be for a broader thesis. And 2026, we're going to see how Tesla can carry this momentum. So the stock prices that all these companies are starting off with for their performance year to date is what you're looking at right now. Tesla's going to have to beat 457 by the end of the year. Palantir's going to have to beat 477 or 177 by the end of the year. Robinhood's going to have to beat 113 by the end of the year. These are way different prices from January of 2025, where those stocks were up a lot, but those stocks were not up as much as they are up today. Nvidia is going to have to beat 186 to start off the year. SoFi is going to have to be 26. I mean, all these names just have a heavier burden, and they're going to have to produce stronger earnings to be able to achieve returns this year. And we're going to have to see if the earnings can live up to it. Meta right there, 664 as well in the pre-market. Oh, wow. David Sachs called CARP CEO of the year. Oh, I missed that as well. I didn't get to watch their holiday celebration. Okay. We got someone naming CARP CEO of the year. Palantir as well right there at 170 or 181 now in the pre-markets. Again, Palantir had a massive year as well. This is the list of the top stocks of 2025. SanDisk ended up being the winner. This is one of the questions I asked on the giveaway. Robinhood and Palantir made the list. So SanDisk, Western Digital, and Micron, if you were in those three, you were able to get a decent chunk of momentum. But then Robinhood and Palantir ended up pulling through towards the end. And then you have Newmont, Warner Brothers, which is a joke. That was basically from a acquisition. But that got in there, and then Lamb Research as well. Such and says Kathy was saying 8 million deliveries in 2021 after Q4 2020 numbers by 2025 end. Well, Kathy was also projecting, what, $2,000 a share by 2026. We're at 400. So she has the end of the year to be right for a 5X in Tesla. Wow, she was projecting 8 million 4 years ago, and we just came in at 1.6 million. I mean, there was a lot of analysis that Tesla would do 20 million by 2030. And I mean, that's still possible, but that would have to be a 20X and basically, or at least a 10X in, if you assume just 2 million right now in 4 years, which is going to be difficult. But also, I think that's when the narrative was more so that people actually cared about delivery numbers versus the FSD story. Silver and gold, what do we have going on there? So silver was down on Wednesday. Silver is up 3.75%. I don't think we've seen a commodity act as volatile as a growth stock in history. But that's what we are seeing. Silver right here, it was as high as 86, as low as 70, now back to 74, all within the span of a week. The 10-year, by the way, not really budging, unfortunately. That one continues to inch higher, 4.163. I think if we don't see the 10-year below 4%, it's going to be very difficult to imagine that silver and gold meaningfully are going to go down. But a lot of this stuff is going to be intercorrelated with if we get a rate cut and if we end up getting inflation data that comes to the downside. Remember, we had really good jobless claims on Friday or on Wednesday. Take a look at the rate cut probabilities, 14.9%. We're growing at 4%, and the jobless claims were at 199,000. Just not enough. Not enough to say that we are in such a bad situation we need to get a rate cut. And so I think we're going to have to wait and see what the data looks like to really think, is there even a world in which we get a rate cut? Let's play that Tom Lee video. This is about 2 minutes on, and I'm speeding it up, on why people should vote yes to this BM&R thing, and then we'll go from there.
You to vote yes for the authorized shares increase. The details are available in the proxy, and the specific matter I want to talk about is matter of business number 2, to approve the charter amendment to increase the number of authorized shares. Currently, Bitmine has 500 million shares authorized, and we want to increase this to 50 billion. Now, many of you are wondering, why would we be increasing shares by such a dramatic amount? And so I want to explain. The first is Bitmine needs to conduct capital market activities, including at-the-money transactions, or in the future, convertible instruments or warrants, or even preferred stock. We also want to make opportunistic acquisitions, and we would need shares for that. But I think the most important reason we need to increase the authorized shares is we have to accommodate share splits. This is really key and why we're increasing the shares. Let me explain. Bitmine's stock price follows the price of Ethereum. So on the x-axis here is the price of Ethereum. The y-axis is Bitmine's share price, and this is since July 10th. And as you can see, as Ethereum's price has moved up, Bitmine's price has moved. The coefficient, and it's a rough equation, is roughly 0.015 times the price of ETH plus whatever ETH per share accretion is taking place. Now, keep in mind, Ethereum, in our view, is the future of finance. Larry Fink even wrote about how tokenization is really the biggest innovation in financial market infrastructure since double ledger accounting. And he thinks we're at the beginning of tokenizing all assets. And the good news is most of this is taking place on Ethereum. Look at the number of Wall Street institutions building on Ethereum, and look at the total value locked. The vast majority of this is happening on Ethereum. And we've talked about this. This is why we think the price ratio of Ethereum to Bitcoin is really the most important to watch. And if Bitcoin gets to 250,000, which is our view, and Ethereum trades at its 8-year average ratio, that's 12,000 Ethereum. If it gets to the 2021 high, that's 22,000 Ethereum. We believe Ethereum is, because it's the future of finance, well, it's going to be a payment rail that gets to 62,000 Ethereum. But what if Bitcoin gets to $1 million? That would value Ethereum at $250,000. So you can imagine, let's take this chart again, that Bitmine's price follows Ethereum's price. But then let's look at the future price levels for Ethereum. 22,000, 62,000, and 250,000 Ethereum. Well, using that coefficient, that would put $500 Bitmine share price at 22,000 ETH. At 62,000 ETH, 1,500 is the implied price for Bitmine. And of course, at $250,000, the implied price for Bitmine is 5,000 a share. Now, of course, this is per share levels. These are implied from using Ethereum's price in that coefficient. But here's the thing, not everybody wants a stock price at 500 or 1,500 or 5,000. Most people want shares to stay at around 25. So what would be the required split to get Bitmine's share price back to 25? 25 means it's easier to buy lots of shares at $25 a share than at 5,000, for instance. Well, here's the numbers. At 22,000 ETH, the stock price would have to split 20-1 to get back to 25. At 62,000 ETH, the stock would have to split 60-1. And the implied split at 250,000 ETH is 100-1. Well, what does that mean? As you can see, the current shares outstanding is 426 million, and we're trying to get the authorized share count to 50 billion. That doesn't mean we're issuing 50 billion shares. That's what we want the total max shares to be. Well, here's the math. If you split 20-1, the current share count would go to 8.5 billion. If you split 60-1, the share count goes to 26 billion. And if you split 100-1, the number of shares goes to 43 billion. So you could see it's going to be important to increase the total maximum authorized shares. So going back to this question.
I'm sorry, guys, but that makes no sense to me. I agree with Danielle. Why is he planning something that's going to happen in 100 years? Or even 10 years? Or even 5 years? Or even 1 year? Like, you authorize shares to do a stock split when you need to do a stock split. Like, when your stock actually gets that much momentum that it goes up 10x and you're an NVIDIA and your stock's at $1,000 a share and you're a Jensen who's thinking, it makes more sense to be at $100 a share than 1,000. Then you go through the, I don't think it's that complicated. I don't think there's some law that it's like, if you don't authorize the shares 5 years before your stock gets up, then you can't, you tell your lawyers, hey, we want to split the stock. They get to file everything. Then shareholders vote on it. If you've given shareholder returns, you're likely going to get shareholders to agree, yeah, we should make the stock even more liquid by splitting it. And then the job gets done. So I am honestly, genuinely confused why the hell they need to have 50 billion today on the assumption that ETH might be 20,000, and as he was saying, which is what would create the necessity for a stock split. If ETH is sitting at 3,000, it's not there yet. I'm like genuine. That's my raw rate. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm really missing something, but I think that's just not a meaningful explanation. I'm really trying to think, what am I missing here, and why I sound stupid. But I can't explain why we have to do a stock split years before the asset. Like in that case, like he's basically saying we want to have 50 billion shares authorized for the split. I mean, he's saying it's explicitly for the splits, not to just be issued. But I don't know why we need to worry about a split. Like, can we worry about the stock going up first before we even think about splitting it? Like, what's the point of splitting it right now? Yeah, we should do it in stages. Pre-recorded when he thought we would reach 15,000 by now. I don't get it, dude. I genuinely don't get it. Look, my strategy on BitMine, I talked about it last week. I think I'm just going to sell those in the money calls. It'll basically be break even by January 2027. It'll at least generate some premium for me. And if we do get a really, really ugly dip, I will use that premium to probably buy the dip, depending on where the price of Ethereum is. But in terms of the actual logistics of how they're running this company, it's hard to DCA into this, even if you believe in Ethereum, because all of the shenanigans that are being pulled, it just makes you think, why don't I just buy Ethereum if this is going to be the route that this... And obviously, this is a beta to Ethereum. So if you buy Ethereum and Ethereum tanks, you're also backloading Ethereum. But at least you're not going through authorized share dilutions that aren't really giving you a reason for why they need to be authorized. That is my concern here on BitMine. But there you go. That's what we got. Again, I said it last week and I'll say it again. As much as I love Tom Lee, I do not think he's doing himself any favors right here in the way that this entire situation has played out. Now, if ETH goes up, all is forgiven. Obviously, that's how the market works. You're right until you're wrong until you're right. But if we are headed into a little bit of an ugly crypto wintertime, which again, I'm only stressing this because his own analysts are projecting, the people that work at Fundstrat, that crypto, and I mean, they only bought 40,000 Ethereum last week. So it's not like this is the lowest number of Ethereum they bought in history. Why? Because, I mean, obviously you would imagine them saying, hey, maybe it's smart to wait to see if we can get a cheaper price. But if that's the case, then that means they're projecting that ETH might go lower as well, which obviously would affect BitMine. Rocket Lab right there, that's up 2% as well, 71.15. Oracle's up 1.3%. And then AMD, that's up 1.8% in the pre-markets as well. They probably don't think it's the bottom. Yeah, I agree. I think they probably don't think it's the bottom right now. All right, so we're going to see. We are going to see what happens with BitMine. But look, I'm curious what they're going to say at that shareholder meeting as well, because that's going to be something really important in January. And I don't know, I kind of wonder how they're going to frame the entire argument, because do you even need a shareholder meeting? Like, everything is contingent on Ethereum. So I think they would be just talking about why Ethereum is important. But obviously the question is going to be if people even believe that Ethereum is in the right global macro cycle to be able to do well. And again, I think the other reason people have concerns about this is because everything is going well from a money printing perspective and crypto is not necessarily pumping. And so the question is, how much more do things need to be in the favor of the liquidity that's needed for crypto? And are we going to get those catalysts this year? But I think that may be something that they focus on. Morgan Stanley says Micron will continue being a winner. They see manufacturing constraints colliding with stronger demand and new model average 2026 DRAM prices up 62% and NAND up 75%. They have a price target on Micron at around 350. It's 293 in the pre-markets. It's hard to imagine Micron actually doesn't get there given the level of demand that is coming in to the memory ecosystem, given the fact that NVIDIA literally bought a company to potentially avoid the memory shortage rock, and also given the fact that Micron's forward PE is nothing, right? It's trading at 8. It's like that, or I think it's at 10 right now. Like, that is not an expensive multiple to pay when you look at their growth. I believe their PEG is lower than 1, and they increased earnings estimates by 100% for EPS going into Q4. So, I mean, is Micron attractive here? Yes. I am a little afraid that much momentum potentially makes it a little bit buy, just based on the fact that it might need a breather. But then again, I think if you're owning it, you don't have a reason to sell. If you're not owning it, you have to find a good time to buy. But I think it's on the list of names you look at if there's a dip, because it's hard to imagine that Micron necessarily doesn't have the momentum along with Samsung and SK Hynix when it comes to what's going on with memory. Let's take a listen to David Zeros, who was on the short list to become a Fed chair. It's likely not going to be him now, and just get his thoughts going into 2026.
What, expect pricing in now 2 cuts?
I do. I think that the market and the Fed have overestimated neutral since COVID, and they've kind of sloppily done this exercise because they raised rates so much, things didn't break, so they just assumed neutral went up. They didn't assume that their whole concept of how to calculate neutral was incorrect, and it was because of the balance sheet. Now that the balance sheet is back to neutral, I think rates will come back to where their pre-COVID neutral levels were. And again, that is closer to 2% than 3%. And I think that iteration, that process of iteration started this past year, which is why rates have come down and why folks were actually very wrong about interest rates. You saw a lot of 5% forecasts for 10-year yields last year, 5.5, even more, and people talking about rate hikes even over the course of 2025. That all went away. And we saw the rate cuts. We saw rates come down. I think that process is still ongoing. And we are going to have a more dovish Fed. We're going to have a new Fed chair, a new Fed governor, maybe even 2 new Fed governors, depending on what happens with Lisa Cook. And I think they'll be much more inclined to focus on the supply side and those lower neutral rate structures.
I agree. The only problem is, will we actually be getting, by the way, ASML up 6% in the pre-market as well. Will we be getting a data-driven Fed that looks at what's happening in the labor market as conducive towards the rate cut? Like, he's right that last year people were way too restrictive. I mean, you had Bank of America saying for the majority of the year we would get 0 rate cuts. They were obviously wrong, and that's a pretty big bank to say, hey, no rate cuts. So a lot of people were wrong, but will we get enough data that is in the right way, the whole good news, bad news, good news kind of conundrum, to be able to justify that rate cut going into, or multiple rate cuts going into the end of 2026? I think that's going to be a very big question. ASML got a price target to 1,500 as they had EPS significantly raised from Alethea Capital. There was a great documentary over the past week around semiconductors as well. I think you guys know, I'm forgetting the name of the documentary, but it went completely viral. And I believe they mentioned ASML in the documentary. This was on YouTube. I think the head of Google AI DeepMind made the documentary, if I'm not wrong. But they talk a lot about the intersections of how lithography actually contributes. Veritasium, yes. I didn't fully watch it, but I've heard that people were, it's all about ASML, yeah. This could be contributing to potentially a lot more education around ASML, along with increased earnings updates on the company itself. So that stock right there up 6%. Trump just tweeted on tariffs. Okay, let's see what he said. We got about 7 minutes, folks, until we open up for 2026. Okay, Trump says tariffs are an overwhelming benefit to our nation as they have been incredible to our national security and prosperity like nobody's ever seen before. Losing our ability to tariff other countries who treat us unfairly would be a terrible blow to the United States of America. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I think Trump knows that the Supreme Court might not be on his side. Now, there's a world where the Supreme Court gives him the vote, but you can tell he's potentially getting a little worried, right? And he's been saying this for the past month now. The Supreme Court might not be in his favor. I mean, we're going to see if we actually get the reversal. I think Nike, Elf, a lot of those names are up pretty heavily on that headline. So maybe there's a trade there. But also the question is, can the administration find some legal loopholes to still engage in tariffs? And if that does happen, and that's going to take more time, that's also just going to be something that potentially is a distraction going into next year. So it's definitely something that we're going to have to watch out for. A couple macro charts before we open the market. Take a look at global M&A. This is the reason for why long financials make sense going into 2026 if this trend continues. There were 68 deals valued above $10 billion in 2025. This nearly doubled from the prior year and exceeded the combined total for 2023 and 2024. The previous high was in 2015 at 62 deals. This means global mergers and acquisitions, the most high-profile one being Warner Bros. And Netflix, is becoming very real. It's becoming very, very, very real. And if this continues in 2026, you're going to get a lot of these companies, particularly the banks. And I think SoFi, although it might not be involved in every major M&A or underwriting every major IPO, they're going to benefit from that as well. Tesla right here up 1.6% of the pre-markets. That's going to be a catalyst for the financials. Not to mention you got SpaceX, you got Databricks, Stripe, Discord, all these companies that are ready to go public. The Information did a report last night that said these companies are seriously thinking of going public like ASAP. A lot of them are recognizing that there's a short window to go public, and that window is now. Anthropic was included on that list. So you might see a lot more of those IPOs, which is going to be great for the banks. These were the worst performing stocks of 2025, as you can see right here on the screen. The trade desk got hit the worst, along with Fiserv, down 67%. You had Deckers, Gartner's, Lulu, Molina, GoDaddy, Chipotle, Charter, FactSet, United Health was down 30%. So maybe these are some of the names that have potentially bottomed and can get your turnaround. But these are the worst names that we saw at the end of 2025. Oh, look, it's my portfolio. Look, I can understand if some people had one or two of these names. Hopefully you didn't have most of them. I mean, realistically, the ones that are popular with retail are Lulu, Molina, that's really because of Michael Burry, United Health, Fiserv, and TTD. I mean, and then Chipotle. I doubt a lot of people own Lamb Weston Holdings. But that one got hit. So we're going to see, out of all these, pick which one in the chat, out of all these you think has the best chance to rebound. I think it's UNH. If I had to pick, I would say UNH and Lulu. If the consumer comes back for Lulu, the trade desk, I just don't understand their business that well. Same thing with Fiserv. UNH, I feel like if they can increase earnings projections, that should be back, not back to like 600, but at least back to a better spot. And maybe that's something that we're going to have to see going into 2026. Here was another report this morning that I thought was interesting. I haven't fully confirmed it, but the Korea Economic Daily reported that Google cut its 2026 TPU production to 3 million units from 4 million after losing out to NVIDIA in TSMC's COWS advantaged packaging capacity. So I haven't heard too much about this, not really affecting Google in the pre-markets. We have heard a lot of, Google's actually up 1%, a lot of good news about NVIDIA and their chip demand with China and their confirmation of getting TSM to build them another 1.3 million H200s. They only have 700,000 in inventory right now. They need to sell 2 million to the Chinese. But you are potentially seeing some more excitement for the NVIDIA chips over just the basic TPUs. Here's another stat as well. We got 2 minutes into the market opens. I thought this was a really interesting stat. Overall, in the 23 prior years when the S&P 500 was up between 10% and 20%, the median gain in the following year was 11.8%, with positive returns 70% of the time. It's also interesting to note that it has been more common for the S&P 500 to be up 20 to 30% than it has been up to be actually be up 0 to 10%. Basically implying that the risk-on momentum should continue given historical tendencies of how we've been risk-on over the past couple of years. If that continues, amazing. All of us do very well. If that doesn't, as I think the biggest thing we hope is that at least it's not a bear market, even if it's just a choppy sort of like flattish market, which is what Wall Street's calling for. I mean, Wall Street's calling for a 10% year on average, but a lot of them are very skeptically calling for that 10%, which might be the signal for why it's way more than that. Because I think everyone was more bullish going into 2025, and then we ended up being bullish, but we had a lot of the drawdowns with the tariffs and stuff. Now everyone's being not bearish, but relatively cautious, which maybe means the consensus opinion becomes the contrarian opinion. But I think a lot of it's going to depend on earnings growth. We talked a lot about earnings growth last week. That is, I think, the single biggest factor to what we're going to see out of 2026. All right, folks, here we go. 30 seconds, and then we are starting off the new year. Excited to be here once again. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Hopefully, everyone had a great holidays. I know we'll get really back to action starting next week on Monday when everyone's probably back and ready to normal. But it has been a massive 2025. Very, very, very excited to be analyzing the equity markets every single day, morning and afternoon in 2026. And we are officially here for the first market open of 2026, Friday, January 2nd, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. Dude, something happened with the bell right there. God. Did the bell get stuck? Okay, the bell got stuck. That was really weird. I don't know why. You saw the bell like kind of taper out a little bit, right? Okay, we'll do that again later. Palantir, wake your asses up. Opens at definitely Temu bell today. 180.52. That's up 1.56% as we open up the markets. We are pretty much green across the board. 352 on Broadcom, S&P 500 at 685, Robinhood at 114.81, Nebius at 86.82. Ondas is up 5%. Red Cat's up 5%. Look at this across the board. NVIDIA 190. You open up the markets and it starts completely green across the board. Now, we've seen this many times in 2025. We got to see if this continues. PayPal right there, 58.71. Oscar at 14.49. Amazon at 2.32. Duolingo at 1.76. Celsius at 46.80. Wow, Micron, did we pass 300? Boom. She passes 300. Will it last across the entire market? It's almost like everyone woke up out of vacation and they're ready to start buying. Volume is also incredible. Tesla volume, 6 million shares in the first minute, 456, even after they missed on their delivery report. Nike right there, 63.84. Bob is at 153. Baidu is up 11% after spinning out their AI unit in Hong Kong. BMNR is up 3.4%. Palantir at 180. Robinhood 115. SMCI is up 3.5%. Oklo's up 2%. Coinbase is up 1%. Silver continuing to be up 3% on the day. Meta is up 0.32%. ASTS is up 1.17. Coinbase is up 1.8. Where is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is at 88.7. AMD, wow, 5% candle on AMD. Micron 303. ASML 1140. I guess we're starting off the year with the semis. I guess we are starting off the year with the semis. NVIDIA leading the way as well at 190.6 of 2.23%. Lam Research, that's having a good day. Let me go to all the semis right here and see what we've got going on. Wow, that's a lot of green as we open. Micron up 5, Dell up 2, Lam up 4, ARM up 4, Marvell up 3, TSM up 3, ASML up 6, Broadcom up 2, Intel up 3, SMCI up 3, AMD up 4, NVIDIA up 2 on the day. I wonder what's the reason for all this. Amcor is also up 5%. Yeah, this is, if Amcor is running, Amcor is a rather unknown semiconductor play. The fact that Amcor is up, that means all the semis, even algorithmically, you could argue they're in a bucket and they're just getting the bid right here. But why? What is the reason? I mean, yeah, there was some bullish stuff on NVIDIA this morning with China. There's some bullish ASML stuff. You got some price target upgrades. AMD, look at that, back to 222. Okay, the question is, does this last? That's the question. Does it last? T1 Energy, that's up 10%. Bloom Energy, that's up 4%. Volume looks really strong. Rocket Lab, that goes down. So Rocket Lab, one of the first growth names to go red. It's one of the only growth names that I see that's red. Robinhood, Pound. Well, Robinhood, no, just it was at 115. Now it's at 113. It's about to go red. Pound. Oh, wow. Palantir opened at 181, 177. Dude, you're seeing some ugly, like really quick red candles right there. Oh boy. Rocket Lab down 2%. The semis are kind of being held up. SPY is up 0.3, but down from 686 to 684. You guys see that, right? That's not just me. The semis are holding. Even Tesla, 457 right to 454. It's not red yet, but it's almost like that burst of green lasted for 3 minutes. And on the 4th minute, you're seeing some red. Now, maybe that reverses. Delayed tax sell. Oh, yeah, there's definitely people selling for taxes today. I forgot about that. NVIDIA, though, she's not stopping. She's holding on. 191 for NVIDIA. ServiceNow, where's ServiceNow? 149, that's down 2%. They just had their split. Amcor still moving. See, if all the semi names are moving, but the rest of the market's going down, that's a weird way to start 2026, given that they usually move in tandem with each other. Broadcom, 355. Broadcom, look at that. This thing was 325 last week. Nebius, the data center plays 86, whereas Iren, that's at 38.62, up 2.2%. Amazon is pumping. Amazon is getting a bit of a pump right there, 233. How about Netflix? Netflix, wow, 92. All right. Netflix, another growth name, along with ServiceNow and Rocket Lab. Rocket Lab down 3.7. That are hit. Hood going red. Felt like it was going to happen as soon as they lost 115. They also were red on Friday. Now, granted, everything was red on Friday, but Hood took a little bit bigger of a beating. Tesla looks like it's about to go red. 452. That's the lowest of the day for Tesla. Look at her just dropping. 452.39. Palantir goes red. Broadcom still holding. How about VG? VG is green, 2%. This one's been stuck between I'm going to say 5 and 7 instead of 6 and 7. So that can we just leave that in 2025? Can we all just be adults going into 2026? Can I not have to catch myself when I say those two numbers every time? That would be nice. UNH, that goes down. Uber, that goes down. What is this, bro? How is this a start to 2026? Everything blistering green. Then one by one, they all start falling apart except the semis. S&P as well, low of days, 684.30. If the semis give out, we are going red across the market. That's very clear. If the semis give out, NVIDIA loses even another, called 1%, which means AMD will probably lose 2%. ASML will probably lose 1 or 2%. S&P is probably going red, but the semis are going higher. The semis are not giving out. ASML, 8% on the day. 8% on the day. Huh. I mean, maybe it was that initial sell-off for people to finally cash in and not have to pay taxes for 2025. I mean, if you've been just itching to sell something, and I mean, literally right now is your opportunity, right? So that could also be triggering it. Celsius right there, 46.03. Credo, 147.80. That's up 2.7. What about Iran? Iran is low of the days now, but still up 1.1%. Baidu did have that spinoff. That's what's been helping Baidu. That's up 10%. I don't know why the spinoff is that exciting of a reason. I get they have a bigger equity stake, but I thought there was something more fundamental with Baidu that would have caused the surge. But spinoff is more equity on their sheet. So Street's probably helping give that a premium. Amazon right there at 233. Where's Grabby Grab? 509. Okay, so that opens up 2% on the day. Bloom Energy up 3. Amcor 4257. Amcor continuing to get some momentum. This is a semiconductor day. And it's a Google type of day. Look at that. Well, Google with those TPUs kind of in that same niche to an extent. 319.80 on the Googs. That's up 2.2%. ZW says, I just sold my ASML call, quick 1K. That's not too bad. ARM is up 5% as well. So again, ARM also getting a move, 114.70. Someone just bought $1 million of SOXL, which is the triple leveraged semiconductor ETF. They bought calls at $49 strike, which is a little bit out of the money. That's up 11% today. Makes sense. That's for February 2026. So you're getting some option flow coming in as well for the semis. Wedbush reiterates $600 price target on Tessie, even after their demand or even after their deliveries. Tesla right there, 452, very close to going red. But that is green. Google 2.5. Okay, so why is Google getting a move? What's the hit on Google? Let's see. We saw that TPU news this morning, which one could interpret was potentially bearish versus bullish. There has to be something more bullish here. Or it's just people buying the gooks to start off the year. No, I don't see any specific news. I don't see a price target. I don't see an upgrade. I don't see anything right here. But Google, ARM, NVIDIA, kind of your large caps are the big are getting bigger. ARM right there, 115, VG up 2%, S&P 684, Amcor 4240, Micron 302. Micron down from 303, but 6% up, just completely busted through that level. And you can't argue it's super expensive here. Oklow's up 1.6, Coinbase up 0.4. AppLovin is down. Wow, 650. What is that? 4% down? What the hell is going on with AppLovin? Dude, talk about weird price action. SoFi just went red. Why is Enphase up 5%? I mean, I know we've been talking about solar with silver over the past couple of weeks, or past couple of days, but that's a bit weird. And then Rocket Lab get hits by 2%. ASTS also down by 3%. AppLovin versus App Hated. This is weird, bro. This is weird. I mean, it makes sense. First day of the year. It's a Friday as well. You're going to get some wonkiness. Also, we have options expiring today. Not that many because the January 2nd chain was introduced like a couple weeks ago, but you do have options expiring. TTD, where's that one? That's down 0.42. If Enphase is able to get electricity prices to go higher, you may not need to raise rates to come down if electricity prices get high enough. That is fair. One could argue, though, that if Enphase uses a lot of silver in their solar panels, which I imagine they do, so silver going up is not necessarily bullish for Enphase. But if electricity prices across the world are going up because the data centers, you might need something like solar to help. So weird, though. It's just there's not really a trend you can get outside of long semis. And the broader question is, why are semis getting the momentum today? Like, semis have been out of favor pretty much. Semis have not done anything for you. I mean, you had some individual names like a Micron do well, but most semis, Amazon right there trying to hit 235, at least that one's moving. Most of the semi trade has been dead since November. So it's interesting that on January 1st, they wake up. ASML and Micron, yeah. Those two kind of leading the way and helping the NASDAQ. The Q's at 619. NASDAQ's having its best day in 2 weeks. SMH is up 4%. Where's Zeta? Yeah, where's Zeta? Zeta 2017, that's down 0.5%. It's almost like everything is getting hit if you're not in semis or Google. Tesla's very close to going red right here after hitting 458. And then the China names are getting some love because of Baidu. Baba as well at 152. CES is coming next week. That could be a catalyst for the semis. That's fair. There's going to be a lot of news probably at CES for a bunch of different semi names. It's just January 1st. There you go. The semis getting some love.
In China. Overall, I think our effective tariff rate is like 10, a little over 10% right now, of course, coming from very low numbers before last year.
I was going to say, I thought it was maybe a little bit higher than 10, but also remember, tech hardware is exempted in most cases. And it seems like, I think one of the potential outcomes, if, let's say, the Supreme Court rules against the kind of across the board national security rationale for those tariffs, I do think it's an opportunity for the administration to essentially pick and choose a little more and almost offer relief and be more selective about trying to find other avenues to reimpose. I think there's a sort of standard line of, well, they can just kind of replace them all with these other mechanisms. And I'm not sure if that's going to be the impulse, right? It's almost like you've made your point, you've gotten some revenue in the door, and just like with these furniture decisions and all the rest of it, where you're kind of, deciding what really hurts and what's effective and not, let's not do bananas and coffee and all that type of thing.
Nebius right here up 7%. So now the data centers participating on the NASDAQ's best day in 2 weeks. SoFi goes back to going green. Nebius right here, that's up 5%. Iren is not really following. That's at 2.4. And then CoreWeave is up 4.3. So they're all up green, but not as green. Yeah, definitely a weird day. Definitely a weird day. My question now is are the semis doing a fake out right here? Are the semis doing a fake out? Or is there some manipulation to get the semiconductors to look as they're going up? Or are a bunch of money managers saying, you know what, we underperformed the S&P 500 last year. We messed up in a variety of ways. And one of the reasons we potentially underperformed is because we weren't long semis. Again, if you were long SMH, if you were overweight SMH, you were up 50% last year. So maybe you have a lot of fund managers saying, I'm not taking any chances. I'm not waiting for any drawdown. I'm just putting my money into all the semiconductor names on day one. And I will trust that it's going to play out even amidst the volatility. Now, that's not usually how fund managers think because they are super emotional and they kind of will buy when things are going up and sell when things are going down. But I mean, maybe you just have a push of a lot of institutional money coming into the semiconductor names today because all of them, look at Micron, new all-time high, 305. All of them are going up. I don't think it's on low volume, dude. Micron's at 7 million shares in 15 minutes. Their average volume is 25 million. So Micron in the first 15 minutes of the day has done 30% of the volume. I mean, I don't think that's super unusual, but that's also not super super like bearish. Like on like last Wednesday, that would have been like 3 million shares. So it should probably be on track to meet its average daily volume. But I mean, 30% in 15 minutes seems relatively strong for volume. Uber right there at 83. Oracle as well. Oracle's not really pumping with the semis. It's not necessarily a semi. It's a data center name. But it should catch a bid. GE Veranova, that's up 2.39%. And you got Nebius, 89, looking like it wants to get back to 90. Nebius is my pick next year for the data center plays. That's the one that I'm riding with. I think that's the most complete. I also can really trust management. At least I feel I can trust management. They're going to go from 300 million ARR to 7 billion. I mean, it's going to be massive, massive growth. They're just going to have to make sure they don't dilute like crazy and get profitability in the midst of that. But it's going to be volatile. It's 89 today. It could be back to 82 tomorrow, just given the nature of its volatility. AppLovin continuing to get hit, down 3.7%. Well, we got PMI. I don't know. We got PMI. Okay, let me pull that up. U.S. December manufacturing PMI, 51.8. Looks like the previous one was also 51.8, so no major change. December PMI, yeah, 51.8 versus 52.2 was the expectation. Okay, so a little bit lower than expected, but still came in aligned with what the street thought it would be. 192 on NVIDIA. You got a high of day there for Mr. NVIDIA. Gold, where's gold? Gold is up 0.5%. Silver is up 2.84%. And NVIDIA keeps going. I mean, if NVIDIA is going to lead the way, then yeah, you're going to have a massive run on the semis. If NVIDIA is leading the way, then the semis are not going to be slowing down.
S&P Global Manufacturing PMI. Well, this is our December final read. The mid-month read was 51.8, and it remains at 51.8. And here's the notable feature here. July was our only reading in 2025 that was below 50 in contraction territory. The month after that at 53 was the highest of the year and has gradually been going down. And this is the lowest since that sub 50 level in July. Manufacturing doesn't seem to be doing so great, but it is above 50. It is an expansion territory. And if we look at yields right now, we're at a 4.17 and a 10-year, which is virtually unchanged on the day. It's up 3 basis points on the week. Squawk on the Street will return after a short.
So PMI, relatively decent. NVIDIA, highs of the day. I mean, yeah, I think maybe we all forgot what a real green day looks like. But there you go. Nebius 6, GE up 2, NVIDIA up 3.2, 192.40, Micron 307. I mean, Ethereum 3080. I mean, if we could hit 3100, that would be nice. That would definitely help BM&R. BM&R right there at 2834. Google 321. Google's not stopping either. Google's up 3%. All right, so I guess the theme today is semis and big tech to an extent. You got Grab up 2%. China is also a theme. Robinhood just flipped green. See, here's the S&P just hit back to highs of days. Okay, so that's interesting. Originally, people are thinking it's a bull fake or a bull trap, and it ends up becoming a bull trap in certain sectors, but then the reversal becomes a bear trap. And I mean, I know it's only been 20 minutes, but we really have to see where the trend plays out. Netflix is still red. ServiceNow is still red. S&P flipping green is actually really nice to see. AMD up 5.5%. Hell of a morning if you have if you have NVIDIA, AMD, Broadcom, ASML, Micron, any of these names. You're enjoying it. D-Wave's up a little bit. Transmedics is up a little bit. Intel, look at Intel, up 6%. I was going to buy Intel on Wednesday. But I didn't because I'm also thinking my thesis is kind of stupid. My thesis is just Trump and Jensen aren't going to let this thing fail. That's literally my thesis. I don't even think it's worth doing any fundamental analysis on an Intel. It's like, it's Intel. Like, you have two of the most important people on planet Earth, Trump and Jensen, that have put literally billions of dollars into this company. Like, I feel like it's worth a flyer for the year to buy 100 shares and see what the hell happens. But that's up 6.5. Now that's going up with the semis. That could be down 6% as easily. But that's up. And then Meta right there at 660. Simple thesis are sometimes the best. Yeah. But I just thought of it. I'm just like, realistically, do we think Jensen's going to let Intel fail now that they have a lot of money? Not a lot of money, but a decent chunk of it riding on it. And Trump really wants American manufacturing to come back to the semis. That doesn't mean Intel's going to get all the business, but they're going to get some of the business. And theoretically, that should be enough to get the street on board. But then again, you know, is that enough of an argument for why the stock can replicate an 84% year? TSM right there. Look at TSM. We didn't even look at that all day. Up 5%, 318. They're getting a lot of new orders from Netflix, not from Netflix, from NVIDIA. Maybe if they were getting orders from Netflix, Netflix would be green, but they are getting a ton of orders for these China chips. That's what's helping them. Apple up 2% as well. Bitcoin, we got 90. I think we touched 90. Yeah, we touched it. All right, so this is what happened last Sunday. We touched 90, then we fell all the way back to 87. I do not trust this 90, not for 1 second, or this ETH 3100. I think to really trust it, you got to see it hold. Like, you really got to see it hold for like at least a day. That would be nice. So for 90 by the end of the day and ETH 3100 by the end of the day, I'd be happy. But at this point, I'm just desensitized because they've been stuck in their range, and every time they get to these levels, they get rejected. Maybe not for 2026. NVIDIA 192.40. Yeah, where's Microsoft? Microsoft is down. Weird. MSFT goes down while everything else goes up. 87.3 has been a very strong floor over a week now. It keeps testing that level, and every time it breaches, it comes back above it. Yeah, I mean, well, and that's why the people saying Bitcoin's going to 60, it's like maybe, but it's been consolidating for about a month now. That and Ethereum in a pretty tight range, which makes you think it's coiled up. It doesn't have to explode, but it definitely doesn't have to coil to the downside. But they both have been doing well, holding above a certain level. Zeta back to 2045. That was just a 2017. ASML 1162 again. That's up 8.6, and then Rocket Lab back to 70. It's the Mrs. Claus rally. That's what we'll call it, Mrs. Claus rally. The meme coins are coming back. They were all pumping last night. All of them up like 7 to 10%, which I think might be an indicator of some risk on sentiment. Whereas PayPal? PayPal, wow. If it loses 58, which it did for a second at 57.90. That's just kind of crazy. VRT, that's up 7%. This is liquid cooling in data centers, if I'm not wrong. $65 billion market cap, 174. Navitas, that's up 10%. I mean, even as a trade, if you were in any of the semis over the past week, just holding on, waiting for a day like this is your day where they're pumping. VG back above 7, Robinhood 113, S&P 686, Amcor 42. Broadcom, look at that. She's going for 360 all the way to 325. I mean, technically, this is part of Santa Claus rally. January 2nd is the last day. It's December 26th to January 2nd. We didn't get it for the past 5 days. Maybe we get a blow-off rally today. If that's it. Cypher doing well. Yep. A bunch of the data center plays up 5%. CRM and Adobe are down. I think these are catch-up plays for next year. CRM down 2%, Adobe down 2.4. The question is, do you want to have the opportunity cost of your capital potentially waiting in names that the street has kind of just not given up on, but really doesn't believe in? Like, I think they need an actual catalyst more than just earnings growth. Tom Lee said Tech Q1 will be on fire. Well, that is kind of his thesis, right? That it's going to be really good, then really bad. I mean, it flows with the January effect argument. So, yeah, it could happen. I mean, here's the thing. If you do think that it could get really bad or really choppy by the end of the year, the only thing you can do if it gets really good is take some profits. Or is it a 2025 where even after it gets really bad, it'll be really good, aka after Liberation Day? It's really hard to time this stuff. But I mean, what's really good for NVIDIA? 220, 230? Is that what really good would imply? Not the end of year price, but I guess that first half really good time frame price. I can imagine that happening. That'd be a massive move. And if NVIDIA is 230, I think the S&P is probably closer to 7,400. And you'd probably have some sellers at that point. Rocket Lab right there, 7170. ASTS goes green, and then SoFi once again going green. SMR is up 9%. The nuclear names are moving. Dan Niles, his top 5 picks for next year: Cisco, Boeing, Nike, Apple, and then I don't know what the hell this is. Ticker symbol PIMPING. It's an American manufacturer of radio frequency identification devices and software. But those are his top 5 picks. Cisco's AI, Boeing is more backlogs, Nike turnaround, Apple AI-enabled foldable iPhone he's bullish on. And then PI, RFID tech, radio frequency devices tech is at an inflection point. So those are his names. This is interesting, dude. Lots of different numbers coming through. Where's the space names? Let's take a deeper look at those. So FJet, that IPO, that's down 8. Saidu Space, that's up 25%. That one went crazy over the past couple of weeks. Google still holding 320. Where is Tesla? 453. She's not really red, but not really super green. And then Microsoft at 480. Copen's up 6. Black Sky's up 3. Lunar's up 4. BE's up 7.5. Bloom Energy did have a headline this morning. Let me pull that up right here. Bloom Energy. It had to do with Quanta Energy. I'll pull it up in a second, but there was something that was relatively bullish for them. By the way, take a look at this chart right here by Dietrich. Year 6 of a president office has been extremely strong for stocks, never lower and nearly up 21% on average. So this is technically Trump's 6th year because this is a second term. It is also a midterm year, so it has to compete with the midterm ecosystem. But, I mean, never red and up 21% on average for the 6th year of a president. APLD, that's green. And that is up as well. Applied Digital 2607. Oh, yeah, this is the headline. Thank you, Jack. Quanta PR says it will spend about $502 million to buy 3 Bloom Energy fuel cell microgrid systems for its California plants. That was the reason why Bloom Energy was getting some love. When you close your SoFi 116 option, I do not have any SoFi 116 options. I just have SoFi stock. I don't have any calls, any like leaps on SoFi. Now, I know a lot of people probably do, which are going to be expiring on January 16th. But those should be deep in the money. Like the $10 calls, $7 calls, $15 calls. So, I mean, probably now would be the time to close them unless you think something could happen in the next 2 weeks. But if you do have an option expiring in like mid-January, maybe you take it off the table today, especially if it's deep in the money. But I do have a bunch of SoFi stock. I have been buying more SoFi. I think this thing is closer to 32, dude. I think it's closer to 32 by earnings or after earnings. Like it was at 32.50 before the whole downfall in October. I think that was more than justified. So Noto's got to deliver. ARM right there, 115. That's up 5%. Baidu now up 12% on the day. A-Lab, that's up 8.83%. Arista, that's up 3%. Redwire, again, the space name's getting some love. That's up 9%. Is the 10-year still going up? The 10-year, 4.177, so she's not stopping. The market seems to not care that much. Eric Trump should come up now and say Q1 will be unbelievable for crypto. It is just so funny. Every time he's done that, crypto's been disgusting. Trump will be meeting with the U.S. ambassador to China at 6:30 today. Okay. Good to hear. Hopefully that results in more increased China-U.S. relations, at least to an extent. CoreWeave 76.26, that's up 6.29. Iran up 6%. Iran now really catching up to Nebius. Nebius is up 6.4. They tend to catch up. Like if you're trading these names, they're in the same bucket. And whether you like one or the other, they trade with each other. Even CoreWeave, all three of them up 6.5%. Huh. ARK is also up today. ARK ended out the year 37%, so they had a good year in 2025. ARK right there, up 2.18%, and then Tessie back to 454. Okay, so what we're seeing here outside of the semis is the small caps, which again, that goes to that January effect argument, or continuing to move. And where's IWM? The good thing about the small caps moving is that there are some quality names in the small caps. IWM right there, 247. That's up 0.64%. BMNR 29. That's up 7%. I haven't actually sold my calls yet, so this might be potentially an opportunity to sell those in the money calls. Ethereum right there, 3,085. And then Bitcoin 89.6. Again, the bigger question here with crypto and any of the crypto derivative plays, including Robinhood and Coinbase, is just, will we have crypto volume sustained throughout the year in a meaningful way? And Tom is predicting 9,000 Ethereum, 150,000 Bitcoin by the end of January. Like you would need a really big move to get there. But if you do get there, those names go crazy. Amcor's up 8%. Will you have deep dives next year for small caps? Yes. Quite frankly, I was talking about this a couple of days ago. I want to focus more on mid caps next year, small and mid caps. Just because I think the large caps are amazing and they're going to keep working. But to find alpha, I think you have to go a little bit smaller. Like the alpha on Amazon maybe is back up to 300, which is amazing. But it's also like everyone knows about Amazon. So your alpha is just trusting that the thesis plays out, but it's not like a contrarian bet, I feel. So I do think to really get different opportunities, like TMDX is one that I'm going to be looking at this weekend. I have a couple of friends that really like this one. It was up 90% last year. $4 billion market cap, not necessarily the largest company in the world. So I do want to look into more smaller names. The problem with small caps, though, is they just have to be high quality, because when your market cap is small, it means the street has not really recognized your potential, or you haven't given them anything to recognize. And so you get a lot of just shitty companies, and it's you really have to find the needle in the haystack to see if there's actual momentum. TMDX had a great year last year, and they're saving lives. Yeah, that's another thing. The saving lives part of it, I just like that as a business model. The question is, can they monetize that in a meaningful way? Especially because there's not many people that do the same thing they do. Micron, high of days at 309. This one's not stopping. This one is not stopping. AMD up almost 6%. The semis are just completely in control today. SMH up 4.3% on the day. For all the people saying I said it wrong, maybe you are thinking of it wrong. Do you ever think that? Maybe you're thinking of the phrase wrong. In life, okay, you got to be different to win. Can't be the same as everybody else. So, Davis, I hate you. My uncle saying CopEx is doing well. Where is Copper? 73.90. Again, I sold this thing at 64, bought it at 60, made a little bit of money, but copper continues to be doing very well along with silver. That's another story, right? Do the commodities continue? Do the commodities continue? Here's a chart of copper in the way that they continued last year. Same thing with silver, because if silver continues, the silver miners, which are priced for silver being at $30 right now, not $70, given they didn't anticipate that much demand. But look at this 5-year chart on copper. Look at the 10-year chart on copper. We're talking about a real breakout here, but does it have the ability to continue breaking out? And the industrial use case of it is, I think, what's the most exciting for a lot of people that are in it. TMDX 122.43. But again, the good thing about last year and a good thing about a bull market is there's a lot of different ways to win, right? You did not have to be long silver to win. You did not have to be long Robinhood to win. Like TMDX was up 90%. You could have been long TMDX and you would have done better than most people. I mean, like now, if you were long Amazon, you would have lost. That would not have been a winning year. But there were a lot of different ways to benefit. And Amazon was 160 during Liberation Day. It ended at 230. So if you bought at Liberation Day, it's still a hell of a year. Realistically, I think it was a once in a generation opportunity off a 30% drawdown on the S&P to then reverse 37% within the next 6 months to buy anything, like literally anything, and make money, which was very similar to COVID. And I don't know if we get that same opportunity in 2025. Yes, I've heard of T1, but I have not done any research on it. It's up 19%. That's amazing. I have not done any research on this one. So I will have to look into this. This, EOSE, Bloom Energy, those are the energy names that I have to look at starting this year. There's only so much time in the day. And I'm trying to figure out what are the core sectors to focus on. Energy is obviously a big one. I wrote about that in the Substack. But I also think there are some really interesting small caps to pay attention to. Here's the heat map for the day. The other problem with energy, though, is like, again, we're going to need to see some real contracts for energy to make sense. And the Bloom Energy getting the Quanta deal today was really good. That's like, I'm happy to buy Bloom Energy if I end up deciding to buy it at a higher price after they get some deals, because it takes my risk off the table. Now, I'm not going to get the same type of upside, but at least I know they are actually selling product. And it's not just a fantasy of energy demand that might come or might not come. So I think having some security and knowing that the energy story not only is real, but it's like being validated in a meaningful way, that's really important. But I know Bloom's getting a lot of love by a lot of people. Yes, EOSC does have contracts. That's also fair. EOSC 1220. This one topped out at what, 18? 19.86, then fell all the way to 11, got back to 15, now back at 12. So this one also might be one to look at, given it is on a dip from the highs. Amazon lost 234 back to 231. Amazon did give up all of its gains. I'm worried that everyone's getting excited for Amazon, and Amazon might not play out. That stuff just tends to happen every year. So I don't know. We got to see with Amazon. But I also think Amazon's not hated like Google was. I mean, some people hate it, but Google, everybody hated, which is why there was just a different level of alpha. Hood right there, down again on the day, 0.5%. Intel, where are we at on Intel? That is up 7.4. AMD, high of the day, 226. Who hates Google? At 140, a lot of people hated Google. Not hated in but they were just like very skeptical. They thought search was dead. That was the thesis. And quite frankly, Gemini was not as good as GPT. And so that was kind of your... Also, there was this massive DOJ case, which people thought would actually break up Google. So when you put those three together, you had a stock trading at 15 times earnings for a company that did $100 billion in net income. And I think that type of sentiment backlash, that's just not there on Amazon. Everyone knows the story should play out. I think Steve is doing an article on VRT, by the way. I think he told me he was writing an article on this one. So this is up 9%. He might have published it either today or he's publishing it tomorrow. But this is another data center play that's getting some love. Do you think World Cup will generate a lot of prediction market revenue for Hood? Yes, I think the World Cup will be really important for Hood. Again, the problem with Hood that I keep saying is their crypto volumes. If crypto doesn't get its act together, you're going to see depressed volumes in crypto. And that's just a tough hit on their business. They can make up some of that. I don't know if they can make up all of that. And then we saw the December numbers. They weren't good for equities and options either. So my biggest thing with Hood is they have to get different products out there that are not contingent on market volatility. Because you might not have really bad volatility, but you also might not have really excited momentum coming in, which is why they're expanding to Indonesia and going to the Europe and the UK, because they need just more people trading if you're not going to get the same people trading more. And so that is my only concern with them. But this is where Vlad can put out a lot of new products this year to diversify the business, like they've done with banking, the credit card, et cetera. It's just the question is, can they match the revenue of the core business, which prediction markets are already starting to do. If they get one or two more of those into the ecosystem in 2026, I think that could be very, very bullish for them. I ran right there up 4%. Zeta just went red. So that one just got hit. 1.62% went from 2050 to 20. And the Q's at 619. You are seeing some red candles now across the board. Palantir goes red, 175. That's down. What is more worrying in 2026? Palantir multiple getting compressed or Hood trading volumes? I think both. I think the problem with Palantir is that they traded a very aggressive multiple. They have no room for safety, like simply put. Just like Broadcom had no room for safety on their earnings, and that's why they got hit pretty bad. Even though they had a good earnings, Palantir at this level, they don't have room for safety. They have to execute perfectly, and the macro has to be perfect. Now, the execution, I have a lot of faith they're going to continue accelerating revenues this year. Like, there's like really zero doubt in my mind that they don't live up to that. Which is the difference between Palantir and Robinhood. Robinhood, unfortunately, depends on the market. I can't say Robinhood's going to get massive revenues because I don't know what the market's going to do. Palantir, given their execution of sales contracts, et cetera, I think that'll be fine. But if the macro gets hit, the multiple gets compressed. And the multiple gets compressed on everything. It's just Palantir's trading at such an aggressive multiple. And same thing with Tesla, right? Tesla trades at such an aggressive multiple that the multiple can get hit worse than other stocks. I think that's the bigger concern. Ori, thanks for this chat. What is happening to IGV and Palantir versus SMH? So the story with IGV is that software has been out of favor all of 2025, which is why I thought Zeta actually was depressed, even though they're crushing it as a business, because software stocks are just not in favor. Palantir was the one exception to all the names in the IGV. It did amazing last year because they executed as a software company better than everybody else. SMH was the winner because the semiconductors once again had a great year. The trend for 2026 is, can SMH underperform and can IGV overperform? Can they both outperform or do they both underperform? And I don't think something stops the semi trade this year, but I do think the software names should come back into favor, like a Salesforce, like an Adobe, even though, again, they're just not the most exciting companies. Like a Palantir as well, but again, Palantir has a multiple. Those other companies don't really have a meaningful or aggressive multiple. So the truth is, I don't know, but I know the execution of those companies is going to be strong. Question is then, does the market get excited for software again? Because that dictates Datadog, Salesforce, all those names. And if they continue catching a bid. Applied Digital, that's up 5%. SoFi just went red. We're seeing a lot of names starting to go red now. Lots of different names. Amazon loses 230. My goodness. This thing was at 234. Robinhood losing 112. AMD, I mean, it's holding. Semis are not really down. NVIDIA, no, NVIDIA lost 192. We're at 190. Okay, if NVIDIA goes red, this was the craziest market open to start a new year that I've experienced in the past 3 years. Because that was wild. Like, as soon as the market opened, that was green across the board. And then everything went red except the semis. If the semis follow suit, Micron still holding 309, then that would be quite incredible. Puts just crossed calls on S&P. Okay, so you're getting a lot more put volume come in right now. The VIX, where's the VIX? Are we spiking? VIX is up a little bit. Let me just see right here. Again, VIX is just hit 15, so you do have a little bit of a move right there on the VIX. Netflix 91, that's the lowest we've seen it in a minute. Tesla goes red, 449. 449. Okay, there we go. 10-15 slam, I guess. Tesla red, Hood red, Software red, Palantir red, NVIDIA going red, although it's green, but you can see those cascading red candles. Grab, not red yet, but it's down. AppLovin. What is happening to AppLovin today? 7% down? This thing was at 700 on Wednesday. Like, what is this? 634? I'll see if there's a headline, guys. I don't see a headline. I don't see anything specific yet. Kind of feels like a bait and switch. That's what it really feels like. And I think a lot of us also felt that could happen, which is why, Bitcoin 90K did not feel special. Bitcoin now back to 89.1. Mitt, is there a way to know what percentage of pounds your stock price are that people bought at 100 or 150? I don't think there's a open sourced way to know that. Actually, there are some volume indicators, I think, on certain websites that can tell you some. I'll ask Jason. There have been some tools like that. I don't think there's an easy source I could look at immediately to give you that answer. I would say there are plenty of people that have bought Palantir from, let's call it 120 to 170, if we want to make a range, because it hasn't gone below 140 in 8 months. So, yeah, there's plenty of buyers that have picked up in that price, and it's kind of normalized that range, which means you might, if Palantir does take a dip, you're going to have a lot of those buyers saying, wait a second, like, I bought at 120, stock was at 200, now it's at 170. Do I keep my gains? Do I hold on? Do I DCA? Those are a lot of questions that are going to be asked. And that's going to be really important as well. Yeah, it's on TradingView, right? The VWAP, that should be able to give you a better understanding of the prices that people bought it at. Ondas right there, that's up 1.6. Vertiv up 7. NVIDIA's not giving it away. NVIDIA's holding on, 191. So the semis are not going with the rest of the market. ASML, are we halted on ASML? Wow, they really halted it? No, they didn't halt it, 8.4. Let me check on my phone. ASML doesn't get halted. No, it's not halted. It looks like it's halted, but it's not. 8.3%. Still green. Fear and greed is at 46 out of 100. So fear and greed is still neutral. We are not at fear or extreme fear. Where's S&P? I bet we're at 684. 683. Okay, that's the low of the day. So even with the semis holding on, S&P, that means everything's declining except the semis. JPM is flat. Goldman Sachs goes flat. What about Goldman Sachs up 1%? Lilly goes red. They need to halt Hood. Hood right there down 1.9%. Again, guys, we talked about Hood for the past couple of weeks. We've talked about it. This is kind of why I initiated my hedge. I feel like I understand this company pretty well, and part of that means understanding the downside to it as well. I think the downside is rather obvious if we lose massive trading volumes, and December was a hint of losing those volumes. Now, that means we should get a really good price if Hood tanks the bed to go long. But in the short term, that means you got to be ready for the volatility up or down. Same thing with Rockleb. If they have any delays, like, you got to understand that, all right, Neutron's super bullish, but it's been delayed many times. If it continues to get delayed, that's going to be a headwind. It's not bearish Rocklab, the company. It's just short term. Yes, that will create some volatility. Why is Amazon getting hit as bad as it? Look at this, dude. 227 from 235 today. I know it's a Friday, but goodness, dude. This one just got completely flipped around. SoFi, wow, 2583. Okay, so SoFi is falling with Hood. All the fintechs. Where's Affirm? Affirm down 1.7. Coin's probably down. No, Coin's actually up a little bit, even though Bitcoin just lost 90. Now it's at 89.0. So the fintechs are down. Then PayPal obviously was down today, 57.86. Bezos selling again. Maybe he is. Adobe 337 down 3.6 as that one is also down. Wait, why is Adobe down 3? Adobe was down 1, so that just took a nice 2% hit. And Salesforce also. Okay, so this is not just a Palantir thing, guys, when it comes to software. Every SaaS name, let me go to the SaaS chart. All of these SaaS names are getting hit today. Yeah, look at this. Look at the left-hand side of my screen. ServiceNow down 4, Adobe down 3, Mongo down 3, Atlassian down 4, Oracle just went red, Confluent down, Snowflake down, Datadog down, GitLab, Twilio. Everything getting hit. And I don't see a headline for it. I think it really is just Friday action. PMI was decent. That's not the reason. But everything getting a little hit. I said it was a fake pump. You are not alone. I think a lot of us did not really trust this pump. I mean, it's just hard, bro. I think until we get days and days of consistency, every pump is to be skeptical of. And that's okay. Like if you go a month where every pump gets faded, then when the pump doesn't get faded, that's amazing. But like we're gonna have to see some evidence for the pump not getting faded. Tesla now, wow, 445 from 460. Best Santa rally ever. We really did like this whole. I think the Santa rally thing got way too, what do you call it, commercialized. Bob was up 5%, and everyone just got really excited for it, including myself. And I think the reason we wanted it to happen is obviously because November and October were so choppy, even though they were relatively green from the beginning of those months. But it just did not play out. S&P is 40 cents away from going red. Back to the Wednesday lows. Micron still holding though. I mean, again, does Micron get to hold a 7% move if the whole market goes down? That's the fun thing about the market as well, right? Like the biggest takeaway I have over the past 3 years of doing this, like something that I've almost just realized, even though it is something that's rather obvious, but you have to like go through realizing it, go through living it every day to understand, is that the market moves together. Meaning like if the market's up, everything should be up. If the market's down, everything should be down. There will be outliers on individual days. But realistically, the market forces are so much stronger than an individual stock. And when you ask yourself, how does an Oklo get to $200? It's like because the entire market's moving higher. And then you ask yourself, how does a Google get to 140? It's like, well, the entire market's getting hit. It's kind of incredible how much when you're public and you have somewhat of a brand identity as a public company, if you're in like the top 100 names that are traded, you move with the market. There will be days where you don't, but on average, you tend to just move with the market. Tesla right there, 446. Yeah, it's algos, it's your high beta. But it's like the crazy part about it, Tesla right there, 445, is like when Jay Powell's speaking on an FOMC day and you see everything go up or everything go down, or if we get a random V shape on a Tuesday and you see everything at 943 make their bottom, it's incredible to see how it's like an orchestra. They all play together back and forth. Is Buffett cashing out? Well, Buffett has $359 billion of cash. Palantir down 2%. So I don't think he's cashing out. I think he's been, well, not he, now Berkshire, Greg Abel. I think they've been waiting for a real opportunity to deploy their cash. The best they could do is Google 3 months ago. And so I think they are really excited to like actually buy the dip. Question is going to be what name and is this really a dip? I mean, I wouldn't say this is a dip. A little ugly, but it's back to Wednesday prices. But do we get some real pain here? The swing was crazy. Swing was absolutely crazy. But again, it also, S&P just went red. It also, like, when we saw the blistering green open, I think a lot of us also were like, all right, let's see. Does it actually hold? And if it doesn't, then it's the same old, same old. It's not necessarily that different. Reminds me of 2022. You know, I think that is the other big narrative going into January. 2021, we topped out in November, and then we kind of recovered in December. Then 2022, January, we obviously topped out at 478. 2025, we topped out in November, recovered a little bit in December, kind of went above all-time highs for a little bit in December. And now January, is it a repeat? NVIDIA just lost 190, 189. Is it a repeat of that same cycle? The difference is that 2022, we raised rates. This year, we're not likely raising rates, which does play a massive, massive role in terms of depressing equity prices. The similarity is 2022 was a midterm year. This year will be a midterm year. ARC right there, 77.40. IWM, small caps, just went red. Now, see, the thing about the past 3 years is we haven't had a prolonged downturn. And that's something what Steve was talking about over the past couple of days, which is that, are we ready for a prolonged downturn? I mean, we had people that are ungrateful for 40, 50% returns this year, 17% on the S&P. If we get a prolonged downturn, we're going to be wishing that we had even 5% on the S&P. But are there really market forces, given the Fed easing, given AI, given the rally in a variety of different sectors like healthcare, financials, commodities, given deregulation, M&A, IPO? I mean, I can go on and on and on with so many bull arguments for why a prolonged downturn that literally depresses people out of the market and gets them to leave, like 2022 was. Adobe now down 4%, software completely getting sold off today. Is that really possible in 2026, given the momentum we're seeing with earnings, AI, et cetera? I don't know. I feel a bit more skeptical about that. 1 month, 2 month, 3 month drawdown, sure, but a full year of just nothing but red, like 22. I feel like you need something structural to break in the system, like a recession, like AI is fake or something that hasn't happened. Like the 10-year going to 6%. Like that's just like, I don't see any of those things happening. They could, but it just feels rather unlikely. 10-year going down a little bit, 4.169, not a lot. But you do have some people buying bonds. Now, there is a stat that has been going around as well. I think people have heard the stat. With the S&P trading at its multiple, if you buy the S&P 500 right here, for the next 10 years, your average return is less than 2%. If you look at the historical multiple of the S&P compared to the times it was trading at these levels, if you buy the S&P here, the next 10 years, your return is less than 2%. Now, again, I think some of these stats could have been said a couple of years ago. It did not take into account the massive level of changes we were having in our economy. So I think you take those stats with a grain of salt. But the point of those stats is it proves that the market, yes, is trading at a very high multiple that needs to be justified, which I think has plenty of tailwinds to be justified. But those are also things that people potentially think about. We didn't have AI 10 years ago. That is correct. And that is also very different. But as Tess says right here, again, and this is why cash is not trash, because if we do get a 2022 type of year, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's say we do, I mean, that's what gave us Palantir at 6. Right? Like those are the years where you take whatever money you could possibly find and buy everything, because the markets are likely recovering as they historically do. And when you get that opportunity, you take advantage of it. So it would be some really short-term pain, but I mean, 2022 changed a lot of our lives by giving us those opportunities. Question is, could that happen again? What the hell happened? I left for 30 minutes. That's the nature of this market. You blink for 2 seconds and things change. Let's get a little bit of coverage on those Tesla deliveries, and then we'll keep going from there.
Teleoperation engineers behind the cars. I mean, that's for safety. Obviously we want zero risk with these vehicles, but they need to keep making progress there. And I think that that's going to be the biggest piece of valuation of 26. And then Optimus is kind of like cake dressing at this point. It's something that has tremendous opportunity, but the robotics stuff, let me just say, I'm hearing competition out of China is insanely intense. And most of the supply chain is actually reaching to China. So, companies here, I don't think are doing anything too differentiated from what's already being done in China.
From what the Chinese may be able to do. A lot of it obviously comes down to what that hand those hands can do. Pretty incredible to watch them. But on that note, then, so it's going to be, in your opinion, and I think you have a price target that's at least $50 or so from here, but it's going to be the metrics around robotaxi that kind of are key for a lot of investors, because we're going to put to the side whether they're selling more automobiles or not year over year.
Well, it's going to be the balance between auto and storage, right? Can storage at 30% gross margin, phenomenal gross margins, right? Can that continue to offset the flagging growth in automotive, right? 16% year over year decline. It's hard to wipe that away. But if storage is doing it, that's fine. Then the story side becomes, okay, storage is awesome. What's the future with Cybercab and Optimus? And that's what everybody's dreaming. I mean, the supply chain, Tesla's told the supply chain they want to make 30 million of those robots. That's nuts. I mean, that's
yeah. Well, but he talked about 1 million
feat.
by 2030, I think, is what I remember him telling me the last time we talked. Musk, that is. I would assume the preponderance of the conference call a month or so from now, or when they have it, is going to be around these themes and not necessarily about EVs, right?
I think everybody's going to spend time on EVs and look to understand EVs, and Tesla's going to take market share in EVs, right? As everybody else is retrenching from the market. Their biggest competitor right now is BYD. BYD is getting bigger than them, but Tesla has these incredibly interesting, hyper growth opportunities, and is executing well on its growth business that's emerging. So, I don't think people are going to be too upset by a tiny miss in EVs.
Yeah, I mean, Elon warned about this a while ago. I don't even know if it was this year, the Chinese automakers. I just wonder where this goes and what it ultimately is going to mean for the U.S. auto industry, that these manufacturers are just becoming even more dominant. And in places like Europe, where we thought that at first there were going to be restrictions and barriers, and they're selling and they're adding capacity.
The key to the story is this, right? Tesla is a technology company, and they've been on the bleeding edge of adoption.
And again, that is the story. I mean, Tesla is red on the dig, I think, with the other markets going down in high beta, but I don't think it's necessarily because of deliveries. Deliveries came in at 418 for those that missed it versus 420 expected. Fluence Energy, that's up 10%. All the energy names catching a bid. Micron still holding 308. Salesforce and Adobe are down. I don't know why software is getting hit as bad as it's getting hit today. It's just weird. Nvidia back to 190. Palantir recovering a little bit at 175. Let's also get an update on the China names that are moving, as Baidu kind of leading the rally at that level.
Customer for its high bandwidth memory chips. In Japan, the AI storage player Kioxia went public and became the best performing stock in the world, surging over 500% in 2025 as the company wins new customers like Apple and Microsoft while expanding its manufacturing base this year. The rise, guys, of these Asian titans, it does mark a fundamental shift in the AI ecosystem that for long has been dominated by Silicon Valley's biggest names. It also means competition is becoming more fierce, with about 5 AI-related Chinese names expected to go public in Hong Kong this January, guys.
Yeah, I don't believe that includes ByteDance, which, of course, is one of the absolute giants, Seema, as you well know. Talking to some investors, they tell me, I mean, the thing's doing as much as $50 billion in net income. Its last round, or so to speak, was only $350 billion value. It seems obviously to be worth a lot more than that, but I'm not sure an IPO is in store for 2026. But again, to your point, it's one of the most powerful companies out there. Just the reports about the 14 billion in chips that they may be buying from Nvidia, for example.
Sure, and I think a lot of it comes down to the policy that's in play here, whether it's Beijing putting more pressure on its domestic companies to become more self-efficient. As they do this, as they focus on more innovation, there's also a need to raise more capital, because as we know, whether you're playing a role in the semiconductor space or in memory or building out the cloud computing, real estate assets, it's capital intensive, and there's a need for an injection here as that more of these companies look to go public and ride this wave as more interest does grow for companies that are focused on AI outside of the U.S.
Yeah, if they don't get bought first, I guess. Seema, thanks. Seema Modi. We'll continue with AI.
Okay, so 10:30, Asia stocks continuing to do well. Nebius 90 breaking through. That's nice to see. SoFi 26.24, Robinhood back to 112, Rocket Lab back to 70. Maybe 1030, little reversal here. Nvidia back to 190 after going to 189, and then Bitcoin getting a little candlestick as well. Amit, do you like grab calls? $8, 2026. I'd rather do 27. I do think 26, yes, we should see it at that level theoretically, but then again, it's up to the market. The problem with buying options at the beginning of the year is like you just don't have any data on how the year is going to play out. So I would default to more time on any option contract, which means 2027, 2028 versus 26. But in a couple months, if you get a little bit more data, then it's easier to make that prediction. In general, I don't know. Options have been amazing over the past couple of years. Call options have been, massive volumes, which is also what's helped Hood. If that sentiment dies down, Tesla now low of the day, 447, that is also something we have to think about. Now, granted, leaps for 2028 on a really good company that you think has a good story are probably attractively priced, but it means you're going to have to hold on to those leaps if they get hit pretty bad, if we get a little bit of a drawdown. Bitmine back to almost 30, 29.37. That's up 8. Nebius is up 7. MP's up 5. Fermi's up 11. Critical rare earths are up 14. All the rare earth stocks are making a move. So that and your semis are moving. MP again up 6%. S&P $1.4 billion call wall at 687. Okay, so bulls trying to get over above 687 for us to see a trend up. We did touch it last week, but wasn't able to hold on to it. JP Morgan as well going green. ASML still up 8.6% on the day. Software still sucks. Yeah, you're seeing a lot more pumping coming back. Even Palantir almost fixing everything it lost today. This is the nature of the algos, folks. This is the nature of the algos. All right, fix my bell. Do I ring my bell again? Yes or no? Maybe a proper bell ring gets us back to green. I don't know why. I think there's a thing that the bell got stuck on in the inside of it. It's like this little hook. And then it just wouldn't ring as much. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Some of you guys hate the bell so much. And then other people are just like, dude, we can't live without this bell. It's worse than politics, bro. It's so polarizing. But then again, people love it. Where's PayPal? Are we still low on PayPal? PayPal 57, 58.01. All right, I will do a poll. Do a poll for this one. Big Bear moving as well. Yeah, a lot of these smaller AI name. Big Bear is definitely a small cap as well. 79% of people voted green. Which we might end up getting. I have to mute it every time. I feel bad for the people that have to mute it, but it's also like it's become such a thing where it's like if I don't do it, it's like I wonder when's the first day I introduced the bell. I don't think it was the first market open, to be honest. I think it eventually just became a thing. Or maybe it was. I gotta go back. But at this point, it's just part of the show. Iran is up. Data centers pumping. Nebi is still moving. I take the bad with the good, Amit. APLD is moving. 26.89. Look at that. APLD up 10%. Tesla trying to recover as well from that 444 low. What a day to open up the year, dude. What a freaking day. All right. 56% say yes. Here we go. Let's do it. January 2nd, Friday, 10:40. The stock market is now open. there we go. Proper bell to open up the year. Now let's see if we flip green or if we flip red. Because if we flip red, everyone's going to blame it. If we flip green, everyone's going to be asking for more bell. So now we can properly wake your ass up and get into the market open. Look at CoreWeave up 7.9, Redwire up 11, Bloom up 9.8, Navitas up 11, Google's at 316. Who bought anything today? Did anyone buy anything today? Put in the chat. Did anyone buy anything today so far? Especially at that 9:30, 9:40. Well, no, especially at the 10:15ish, 9:30, everything was green. So realistically, around 10 a.m. is where you had opportunities. I see Zeta, Hims. Oh, where's Hims? We didn't look at that. Tesla, Amazon, BMNR, SoFi, Hims at 33.21. Netflix, Hood, SoFi. Where's Netflix? 91, 92.68. Path, Meta. Path is getting a little interesting. I want to look at them a little bit deeper. I mean, operating leverage seems to be going up for them, and whenever companies are hitting an inflection point in operating leverage, it tends to be bullish for the stock price. So that's one I'll be looking into a little bit. Netflix 92.60, Tesla 447, S&P back at 684, which is nice. I ran Adobe. Oh, hold on. I have to buy the S&P. Didn't I say I was going to do that this year? I have to officially buy the S&P soon. Novo, that's up a little today, 2%. We are getting some decent bounces, guys. Not everything is flipped green, but we're seeing some decent bounces right here. If Tesla can crack 450 again, that would be very nice to see. SoFi 26.39, that's up from 25.79. Robinhood 110 to 113. Rocket Lab 68 to 71. TMDX at 121. We did, what did we do? We did the NCAA bracket challenge on the New Year's Eve stream. So it's not like a stock draft, but we took the top 64 stocks in the S&P 500 and put them head to head. The final four were NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta, and Google, which is kind of crazy, right? That those would be the final four, because you would think they wouldn't, but then again, you would think they would, but those were not the final four of 2025. There were plenty of names that outperformed them. But me, Matt, and Steve thought those four would end up becoming the winners. And I think most of the chat kind of agreed with it. NVIDIA ended up winning at the end. And it was NVIDIA and Meta for the final round. Wow, Micron, 310. So that bounce is now helping Micron continue all-time highs, along with everything else trying to recover. But we all thought NVIDIA would be the winner for next year. And so, I mean, I don't know if that will be how it plays out, but it's kind of funny because that's the name that we thought ends up beating. And I imagine fund managers and when they really ask themselves, hey, which one will outperform? A lot of time you default to the biggest names, at least for the S&P 500. We weren't doing all stocks in general. Amazon got pretty far. I think Amazon got to the final four. Right? Yeah, it was NVIDIA, Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta. Oh yeah, Google wasn't in the final four. Sorry, it was Microsoft, Meta, NVIDIA. It was NVIDIA versus Amazon, then Microsoft versus Meta. Steve and Matt thought Apple would underperform AT&T. I thought they were smoking something. I think Apple's going to outperform AT&T. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they just hated Apple. SoFi earnings January 30th and Robinhood earnings February 10th. So January 30th and February 10th, we are getting up SoFi and Robinhood earnings. Steve just posted his article. Okay, cool. So yeah, I had a feeling he was doing a VRT article. He's bullish. He says VRT can go higher in 2026. Okay, I'll link that article if anyone wants to read it. Robin had just rolled out shorting. A bunch of, I don't have it yet, but a bunch of people I know have had the feature. So that seems like it's starting to roll out heavily now. Palantir 175, PayPal 58. Even PayPal is getting a bounce above 57. Now, if we go red across the board for the second time today, that would be a bit telling. But so far, you are seeing S&P that just recovered from its red get the rebound. CRM still down. Where's Snapchat? This is another name that people have been saying is a candidate for 2026. Snapchat, $8. I just don't trust Evan Spiegel, dude. I've tried watching his interviews, tried to understand how he thinks about the market. I think he's a good guy, but I don't trust him. I don't know. I think Snap needs a different paradigm to get more excited. Netflix right there, 92.70. Palantir at 175. Okay, so let's put this in the chat. Top 3 stocks for the year. Top 3 stocks you are buying, not the ones that you think will outperform, the ones that you are buying. What are the top 3 names? You guys already know my portfolio. I put it out on Substack. Those are pretty much the names. And I think it'll change a lot throughout the year, but going into January, those are my 13 positions. What are your top 3 names that you're buying this year? Like actually adding to and trying to build a deeper position in. VG is also, I guess I should say, top 14 positions. VG, I forgot to put in the Substack, but VG is there. It's just such a small position, and I kind of just bought it because Matt likes it. But VG is up there as well. Bone says ASTS, Rocket Lab, NVIDIA. Amori says Path, Ondas, Fortinet. Interesting, Fortinet. I wonder what you're thinking about Fortinet. This one's been dead for a while. That's down 2%. Naldoro says Tesla. Okay. I think I have an idea of who your CEO of the year was. TJ Ray says Grab, CEG, VST. Do not hate those. Energy plays make sense. Al Magrini says Amazon, Hood, Nebius. Cheeky says I ran NVIDIA and CCJ. NVIDIA right here at 191 now. Amazon, Meta, NVIDIA, SMCI, Ondas, TMO, Rivian, Grab, Rocket Lab, Rivian, SoFi, AMD, Novo, Nebius, Zeta, Novo, Amazon, Nebius. I'm seeing a lot of Novos here. A lot of Amazons here. Is Archer still up there for people? Where's Archer? Archer 780. Maybe this is the year where the eVTOLs show off some more excitement and momentum. I think they've also been primed with all the different deals they got last year and actually putting them in the air yet, outside of Joby, which has done a little bit of stuff. I see a lot of SoFis as well. I see a decent chunk of people thinking this will be SoFi's year. Let's get an update on Apple going into the year. Don't see too many Apples, but if they get Siri right, like actually right, I feel like Apple's a winner. I feel like genuinely think Apple's an AI winner this year.
Here with some of the details, Steve.
Yeah, they're going from market outperform, David, to market perform. And this is really a lot of nuance in here to talk about this downgrade. They don't even have a new price target for this. But basically, the thesis laying out in this note from Raymond James, David, is saying that all the value is kind of packed in. Remember, Apple has had a really good back half of 2025 ever since they kind of came to a tariff standstill with the president, and then showed that they had some growth there in this iPhone 17 lineup of phones. And now basically Raymond James is saying it's getting too expensive. It's well over 30 trading at a 30 PE ratio. So that is getting really expensive. And a lot of it is kind of baked in. And this kind of goes to what I was talking to you guys about on Wednesday, just before the new year, and that the sales growth has to come from somewhere, and people are looking to artificial intelligence as one place, but you got to keep in mind it has to be included in the new iPhone, meaning it's a free service, not paid service like ChatGPT and so many others. So you really have to look for this new AI upgrade we're anticipating in the fall to be good enough to drive some new hardware sales. And they're basically saying it'll keep the cadence of upgrades pretty much the same. It'll keep maybe some moderate growth, but not the huge growth that would be needed to sustain this valuation, Sarah.
Okay, Steve, thank you. Steve
thing.
Kovac setting up Apple in the new year. Silver coming off its best year since the 70s.
Apple gets downgraded by Raymond James. Again, AI continues to be the make or break thesis right here. NVIDIA 190.6. Tether bought 8,000 Bitcoin on New Year's. Sailor did buy 1,000 last week as well. Bitcoin 89.6. Figma as a top pick for next year. A lot of people are getting excited about Figma. I don't know why. I don't think the stock is necessarily cheap, but I will take a deeper look here. Again, Adobe tried to buy them. Adobe couldn't. They're basically trading at the market cap that Adobe tried to buy them at 20 billion. They're at 18 billion. Adobe down 5% today. Goodness, dude. Are we going back down? Are we flipping red again? Oh my goodness, we're flipping red again. Amazon low of day. Palantir just lost 175. S&P just lost 684, 682. She hit 681 a couple minutes ago. Oh my gosh. Tesla once again back to the lows. BMNR is holding today because of ETH. UNH is okay. Is Hood back to 112? Hood is back to 112. Yeah, I have to ring the bell every single time just to get a little bit of green, dude. Guys, can we survive the whole year if we do have a bear market? Like, can we get through every single day in a bear market? Because in 2022, I wasn't like streaming as consistently as I am this time. Like, it was very sporadic. Like, it was kind of consistent, but it also kind of was like there was so many times I'd miss multiple days in a week, like just because I was trying to figure out how to do it. This time we're in a routine. We're red in the morning, we're red in the afternoon. For 200 days, we're going to experience it together every day. Again, I really don't think there's enough bear cases to allow that to happen. Short term, yes, but for a full year, I don't see it. But we're going to have to see if that actually has a shot. Critical metals are up 18%. Yeah. See, it's like the rare earths are pumping today. CRML, which, by the way, this one got hit pretty bad. I mean, look at this thing. Pumped all the way to 32. This was lit. This was October 10th, by the way. This was October 15th. This was literally all the October hype. And hopefully the more times we all live through this type of stuff happening, we can easily spot it. Again, it's always hard to spot every time it happens, but when it happens, they're pretty obvious warning signs to hedge or start taking a little bit of profits because things are getting too euphoric. But the rare earths were part of that euphoria, and then this thing got down to $6 a month later. Now it's at $8.13. Yeah, why is ServiceNow down 4%? I mean, I get the softwares are down, but this thing's been down ever since the split. It's got destroyed. Mate, what's your DCA strategy on SPY? I am thinking of 3 S&P 500 shares a month. That is, there's literally no strategy. It's like on the first of every month, I just buy 3 shares of the S&P. So like $2,000 basically going to the S&P, roundabout. Very simple strategy. Not waiting for any technical levels or anything. I'm probably going to be buying high many times, but literally the goal is to put it in a separate account I don't look at. Don't even think of looking at it. You know what I also want to apply this strategy to as well? I want to apply this strategy to 2 other assets besides the S&P. First one is Bitcoin. Like just at the beginning of the month, just buy it, put it in a separate account, and don't look at it, no matter what happens. And then the third one is Tesla. I just think Tesla's going to be a winner in 10 years, like a really big winner. I hate the valuation from a pure like, hey, I want to buy here perspective. But if I stop caring about that and I just buy it, then I think I'll be able to build up my Tesla position, which I've never been able to seriously build up for years because I've been in it, out of it. 2019, got in it, got out of it, missed the run, got in the run, got out of the run. Like, I feel like I need to take that approach with Tesla, Bitcoin, and the S&P. But definitely with the S&P. Amazon is a better robotics play than Tesla. Look, I agree. Short-term Amazon, but Amazon I'm actively buying. Like, that's like a legit position that I said in the Substack, I want to make it a cornerstone stock in the portfolio, which a cornerstone I define as something that like is a bedrock of your portfolio. Right now, that's NVIDIA, Hood, and Palantir, and I want to make Amazon the fourth one. Can you talk about the covered call strategy you did on Hood? Yeah, again, I put a really in-depth post on that Substack article, but it can apply to any stock. So like, let's just do an example right now with BMNR because people are asking. So let's pull up the option chain. If we go to BMNR, it's an at the money call. Stock's at 29. We're going to go to January 2027 because you need time, you need the extrinsic value to work for you. Let's say you sell a $28 call. 28 plus 12, you're getting $12 of premium right here. It's up 14% today. Is 40. That means you're effectively selling your BMNR at 40. 28 minus 12, current price minus 12 is 16. So you're covered theoretically to 16, meaning the stock could fall to $16 and your covered call would be protecting it. It's not super deep in the money, but it's relatively deep in the money, or relatively in the money going into a year out. And if it goes above 40, you're not qualifying for any of those gains because you're now capped out at $40. So you're collecting, let's say you have 1,000 shares, so you can sell 10 of them. You're collecting $12,000 of premium today, 10 times 12, 30 a share. And you can use that, but you're also decreasing your cost basis by that $12.35. So if you have a massive, massive position and you want to protect it to that NVIDIA losing 190 again, protect it by those $12. That's where a strategy like this, I don't think, is harmful. That's essentially what I did on Hood, because that's just like a way bigger position than BMNR for me. S&P officially goes red, 681. But for Hood, when Hood was at 120, I sold 100. So those are really deep in the money. But those also gave me 40 of premium. So the exit price was 140, which is basically Hood's all-time high. I know it's 150, but basically around that range. Now, I wouldn't do that on a name like SoFi because I don't think SoFi has had a massive breakout. Hood is up more than 10x in a couple of years. And so, like, I think you do this on a name that you're super overweight on and you just want to protect a little bit to the downside. That's also trading at an aggressive multiple. BMNR, I think you do it if you're just afraid of crypto winter. That would be the argument. Palantir going red again, 173. Could barely hold on to 176 when it got back up there. And then Amazon and Meta as well. Wow, Amazon 220. Dude, this is worse than all of last week for Amazon. Meta 649. This is worse than all of last week. I should say all of this week because it's Friday. It looks like we want to go red again. It really, these are like ugly. Look at, dude, Tesla's $2 away from losing the 440s here, which we haven't seen in a couple of weeks. This thing was at 498 on Monday, or 480 on Monday, 498 last Monday. I don't know what happened to Adobe. I really don't. I think this is a general software sell-off. And Adobe, and I mean, look at IGV. That's where you're already seeing the decline right here. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Very weird. Microsoft down 2, AppLovin. I still don't understand what got them hit today. 8% on AppLovin. Are you kidding me? Like, what the hell happened? We know they have that SEC probe, but that also might not be the biggest issue. The dollar is still down. Dixie at 98.26. And Trump tweeted about tariffs earlier in the day, but I don't know if that's the biggest deal. Palantir now loses 173. Where's Zeta? Are we holding 19? 1950, 1952. That's down 4%. Tessie 442. I mean, covered calls are up today. If you were selling any at the monies, Micron loses 310, now at 306. Hims at 32. Meta and Amazon, those are surprising to me. I mean, I guess that's going down with the rest of the market, but those are seeing some ugly reversals just from the pre-market alone. 235 to 225. Really, Amazon? Really? Maybe it's Bezos selling, but still, that's just weird. Then again, you probably also have people selling, so that's contributing to sell-off today. Microsoft joined the party. Microsoft did. Where's Apple? Microsoft down more than 2% now. Apple goes red, 277, 270. It is also a weird day to start. I mean, it is a Friday, right? So it's a little bit weird to kind of start the market off like this, but nonetheless, that's what we're seeing. Let's get a little bit of coverage on the Trump tariff stuff this morning as well.
Yeah, a lot of items here, David. President Trump spent part of his New Year's Eve delaying tariffs that were set to go into place on New Year's Day on upholstered furniture, kitchen cabinets, and vanities. The move will keep in place a 25% tariff the president imposed in September, but will delay a 30% tariff on upholstered furniture and a 50% tariff on cabinets and vanities. Now, shares, as you mentioned, of furniture retailers climbed this morning, with stocks like RH, Williams-Sonoma, and Wayfair all rising in early trading. And in a separate move, the Foreign Ministry of Italy said Thursday that the United States is slashing tariffs on Italian pasta makers. Those were slated to go up by 92%, but the Italian government said those levels would now only be set at just over 2.25% for one particular pasta maker and just under 14% for another. The president's about faces on these tariffs come as the administration has sought ways to blunt the price impact for consumers of the tariffs that President Trump has imposed in his first year in office. In November, Trump signed an executive order to roll back tariffs on beef, coffee, and bananas in order to blunt those price increases that were seen by consumers in the commodities. Democrats have made affordability and high prices central to their campaigns across the country, including that of the new Democratic Socialist New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani, who was sworn in on New Year's Day. And in his inaugural speech, guys, Mamdani cited affordability and abundance as his top priorities for New York City. In an interview with Politico at the end of December, President Trump acknowledged that the key campaign issue for the 2026 midterm elections will be pricing. But in that interview, he sought to blame Democrats for continued affordability issues that were facing voters. He said, they gave us high pricing and we're bringing it down. Back over to you guys.
So I wonder what other moves we can expect from the administration on this. I mean, they clearly addressed pockets of grocery, for instance, with beef and coffee prices when it comes to revoking some of the tariffs. And where else are the pain points? Because overall, Eamon, the inflation numbers have actually been tamer than expected and have not shown a big price increase. It's really more surgical where the price increases are happening as a result of tariffs.
Yeah, and I think, Sarah, when you talk to people in the administration, what they're looking for are they've done these sort of blanket tariffs across the board, and what they're looking for now are specific areas where those products are just not easily or at all replicable in the United States, right? So things like, agricultural commodities that just can't be grown in the United States, for example, are an obvious way to remove tariffs and lower prices for consumers. But anything else where it's particularly difficult, pasta is a great example, right? That's something, it's literally a dinner table issue, right? You see that price increase, you're trying to get your spaghetti for the week, and you feel that pain point as a consumer and as a voter. I think any place where the product is not really made in the United States, there's no prospect for it to be made in the United States anytime soon. Interesting on furniture, though, because the president had talked about, North and South Carolina furniture makers getting a boost from his tariffs. Well, now they're rolling those back, and you see that playing into the tariff, the furniture retailers on Wall Street. But a lot of those jobs in the furniture industry may not come as a result of these tariff rollbacks, as the president had been hoping earlier this year.
Well, it doesn't come overnight, that's for sure. So it's hard, right. You have to deal with the in-between. He is punting it, though, till next year. So they're coming. At least that's the message.
Until he punts it again,
If he punts it again. That's after the midterms. Thank you, Eamon.
You
Eamon
bet.
Javers. We're also watching Tesla this morning after the company reported Q4 deliveries. Phil LeBeau has more with the stock also turning around. It was up initially after these numbers, Phil.
It was initially up, Sarah, but it's down right now. And I'm not sure it's because of the delivery numbers being lackluster relative to expectations. As you've had a number of guests talk about today, so much of what the investor groups who are invested in Tesla are focused on is the potential for autonomous and robotics in the future. And we'll see if that plays out in 2026. In terms of the fourth quarter, we knew that their sales would be down. We saw that in the United States. We saw it in Europe. And look, you come out with 418,000, 227,000 vehicles below the estimate. There are some people saying, hey, the whisper number was 410. So this is a beat. Bottom line is this. These are lackluster numbers, down 15.9% compared to the third quarter. For the year, it's the second straight year that Tesla deliveries worldwide have declined. A total of 1.63 million vehicles delivered in 2025, down 8.5% compared to 2024. As you take a look at shares.
All right, you're seeing a sell-off, folks. Ugly day to start the year. But it's red. It is absolutely red. Palantir 172, Tesla 442. I mean, maybe we see a reversal like we did 20 minutes ago, but that was just followed with another red. The problem is like these reversals aren't holding, which means they get faded pretty quick. And so everyone gets scared if they can hold on. Semi's still okay. Micron at 306. Snapchat's down, Zeta's down, Meta's down, Amazon's down, Microsoft, Palantir. Coinbase is actually up with Bitcoin. So I guess that one's doing okay. Affirm just flipped green. SoFi just flipped green as well. Rocket Lab holding 2%. Financials going somewhat green. Drone stocks holding on to green. SMH again still green. Your Mag 7 is what's getting faded here. Your Mag 7 is what's getting faded right here, and then Tesla's still down. Fear and greed at 44. Seems market is rotating from large caps to small caps. Yeah, and every January that tends to be a bit of the narrative. I mean, that also is a good point. T1 Energy, by the way, 15%. That could also just be what's happening here. Market could be selling off Mag 7 and saying, hey, at least for the next month, we're going to be rotating, which isn't really bearish. It's just a rotation. And it's not really indicative of a trend down. Data centers holding up as well. I mean, data centers are correlated to the semis, right? So CoreWeave, that's up 10%. Nebius, 89, losing 90, but that's up 6. IREN is up. But then the Qs, IREN's up 4% or 8%. The Qs, you just see it lose all momentum, likely because of the Mag 7. And then S&P continues to go red as well. So weird day to open the markets. You got crypto that's green, semis that are blistering green, Mag 7 that's red, and then anything that's like a large cap and not super large, like a Salesforce, Adobe, SaaS is also going red. Honestly, it feels fake. All the price action today on a day like when you see all that coming, like there's no sequence of narratives you can put together to make sense of a lot of that. So a lot of it could just be, quite frankly, algos going back and forth, which means maybe these are some decent dips. We have all the Mag 7 right here going red. S&P, now it's 681. Are the toots shaking retail? That could be happening. Does feel like a little bit more back and forth between how the toots are playing this. Palantir 172. Palantir got to 171. That's down 3% here. And then Tessie 440. So Tesla didn't break 440. It got to 440.9, which I think is really important. So you kind of don't want Tesla psychologically to break that level. But you are seeing some pain there. Let's get a little bit more market coverage from Oppenheimer and see what they're thinking for 2026.
Of the market rally that began at the end of 2022 proceeded through 2023, 2024, 2025. We think it continues this year. The economy remains resilient. The Fed has done the right thing. From March of 2022, it brought inflation down from 9.7% to arguably somewhere between 2.8 and 3% now, still with a ways to go to its target. We have a change of leadership in the Fed coming up in May, which may be more favorable to slightly lower rates. But we think that the resilience in earnings is related. The companies know what they're doing. They're using technology, increased usage of AI. When we talk to people who are at leaderships in businesses, whether it's healthcare, whether it is private equity, finance, everybody is using AI as it exists today, with the likelihood they will continue to. So we think that what we see here is our favorite sectors from this year and for years now: technology, communication services, industrials, financials, and consumer discretionary will likely perform well.
More of the same in many ways, with margins continue to improve in part because managements are strong and/or they're going to get the benefits of AI and lower rates.
I think so. And then the consumer, while the consumer is very negative in terms of surveys, when it comes to the hard data, the consumer's still shopping. And you go on airplanes, it's packed. You got to watch out that you don't want to wind up in row 22 in the middle,
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare. So I started.
Sarah would never know that.
I actually am often in middle seats when I travel with my children because I have to sit in between them. John, I started out, the show talking about the valuation, the multiple of the market, which is high, but it was high last year, starting out as well. I mean, I have a broader sort of, Wall Street looks at all the metrics to define how expensive the market is. From a Bank of America small caps note, trailing PE is 26, the average is 15. Trailing gap PE, 30, average 15. Forward consensus PE is 23, the average is 16. I mean, we can go down the list. There's like 100 of these. The Schiller PE is 38, the average is 17. Very high valuation. So does that make your case harder to make at this point?
It certainly does on the surface, but we've got to remember that the Schiller has been on CNBC a number of times where he's said in a very professorial way, it doesn't always work. And the CAPE, if you looked at the CAPE index levels, we would have been overvalued. You should have been out of the market for years now, or just, I don't know, just hugging.
So what do you like? I could give you any of these. EV to sales, 3.74 versus the average of 2.
What I like is looking at what has changed in terms of the market, which is the individual investor is decidedly different. As you know, this year is going to be 43 years in this market. It's not that I didn't know I'd live this long. It's just that I didn't know how fast it would happen. But when I got into the market, diversification for investment brokers at that time, not advisors, but brokers, was about 5 stocks. People usually got in late to the market. Today, many investors are investing not for the memes or for the crypto stuff. They're investing for their retirement because they realize Social Security is not going to be there. And I think as a result of that, you've got a very clear definition between traders, highly leveraged, impatient, near-term results, and investors who are investing like institutions with very conservative or moderately conservative mandates, and they go for quality stocks. Private equity has taken a lot of companies out of the public markets, as well as consolidation amongst the sectors. Some businesses disappeared. As a result of that, there's crowding. If you look at what Yardini has been saying for years, there aren't enough stocks that really qualify for the Wilshire 5000. And that's basic economics. It's supply and demand. So we think higher multiples are going to stick for a while longer. The other thing is, when we look at inflation, inflation has remained sticky. And why shouldn't stocks be somewhat inflated?
But you also you say there's going to be broadening. I mean, there's some who say, well, the broaden actually is a bad sign because we've been led by our biggest companies. And in fact, the money's going to come out of them. And so the indexes may actually not go up that much.
Well, I think the broadening happens as a result of, if you consider the 2 sectors in the leadership, I mean, it would be communication services, which is the streamers, the search engines, and the social media. And then you have technology with as number 2. Yeah. But then how about industrials?
Industrials, utilities, again, those have been seen as a winner for the data center trade. They didn't do as well last year either. I mean, they did better than the historical average, but tech still led the way. Nebius right there up 7.8%. S&P just flipped green again. BM&R is up almost 11% today. So that one's getting, there you go, breaking 30. Of course, it's going to go up 11% the day after everyone tax loss harvest this thing on Wednesday. I mean, this is the give and takes of the market. So now those people got to wait 30 days to buy it. Otherwise, it doesn't even count. Look at Ethereum actually breaking through 3,100. There you go. Potentially getting some momentum. Bitcoin right back to 90. This is the second time today that it's gotten very close to 90. These two need to stay heavy at these levels to hold on to. Amit, besides SoFi, what financials are you thinking about? I think Citigroup, although it was up a lot last year, they can probably continue to expand the multiple on their tangible book. Citigroup probably is a winner this year, I think. I mean, like everything they're doing along with the new CEO has just been phenomenal. Goldman and JP Morgan, I think are going to be good, but again, they've run up a lot, so and their multiple is more aggressive than Citi. I like TFC and KRE, the regionals. The regionals should really get some benefits from lower rates and the overall sort of M&A that happens locally that these regional banks underwrite. But then again, if there's a private credit issue, you don't want to be long regionals because that could turn ugly really quick. And, the fear of private credit is not something that's slowing down. There's a chart on private credit. Let me pull up here. That could make this a dark horse bear case going into next year. Yeah, look at this. Private credit deals for credit cards, BNPL, and other consumer finance exploded last year in 2025. One could argue it's 120 billion of it. One could argue that this is the reason why Abercrombie, Lululemon, all those stocks have been able to do well. So yeah, private credit could be the concern for regionals, but I do like regionals this year. UNH, that's getting some love. Big Bear AI, that's getting some love. Oh, housing, that's another sector that I think is worth looking into. Now, I would not play it via Open Door, but like a Zillow, if the housing market comes back, maybe is interesting. This one's been hit pretty much all of last year. That's down 2.5% today. Bitmine still at 30. And then I Ren up 10%. For private credit, Doug says you either believe in the consumer or you don't. Yeah, and it's hard to fully believe in the consumer right now because there's so many conflicting pieces of data. Now, then again, you look at the Zeta trying to get back to 20. You look at the analysis from the earnings cycle, which goes at odds with the subprime student loan, auto, and credit card delinquency rates. You just don't know what to believe unless all of the earnings is coming from, again, buy now, pay later or credit cards, which maybe they are, which means delinquencies will rise even further. But again, when you looked at JP Morgan's Q3, like their delinquencies was way lower than expected. They had an extra 400 million in disposable loans available that were supposed to go delinquent. So I think the bank earnings, which are going to start in like a week, right? Banks start in about a week. Those are going to be actually very important to start off 2026. 2 weeks, 14th of January, we'll start to see some more of these bank earnings. SoFi right there, 26.50 on the day. D-Wave, that's up 4%. The Quantum, that's another trend. Does that continue this year? I mean, that was probably the biggest trend in terms of stock price performance in 2025. Can that maintain their momentum? S&P 681 still red. Max 7s are still down. FinTech flipped green, though, except Hood. Or did Hood flip green? No, Hood is still red. See, the problem with Hood as a FinTech is it's more tied to crypto than like a SoFi, for example, or a PayPal or an Affirm, which is good when Bitcoin goes up. But it also gets a little bit of a drag when it goes down. So that's why I think that one is not flipped green yet. And then NVIDIA, once again, below 190. We did have Mr. Mamdani, who was sworn in yesterday as well. That did happen. And, potentially that has some implications on housing in New York. Let's get a little bit of coverage on that.
Donnie, and there were questions about whether the housing market would dip after he got elected. Have you seen anything, and do you expect something to happen given some of his socialist policies that we've seen implemented in places like San Francisco that did not have a great impact on their economies?
I mean, look, it's been a national story, and I think Mayor Mamdani has good intentions. This whole idea of a rent freeze, we've seen that really doesn't work. It's not a long-term solution. First of all, it's only 25% of the housing stock in New York City, so it really wouldn't work. And it typically is implemented during war, like World War II or during the pandemic. So we need smart solutions. We need to build more affordable housing, not freeze the rent, so people disinvest from the units that they already have. And so I hope for the best with Mamdani. I think that he means well, but he has to create solutions that are going to make sense.
I want to talk about a market that just sees higher and higher prices all the time.
And by the way, so Bernie Sanders helped swear in Mamdani. Bernie Sanders is getting someone who's on his side from the Republican aisle, Ron DeSantis. Both of them are starting to push back against AI data centers. Now, we covered this a couple of weeks ago. We all know Sanders is against it. We know DeSantis has started to speak up about it. Sanders wants a national moratorium on construction. DeSantis yesterday unveiled an AI Bill of Rights, letting communities block projects that would be built inside of their local towns and municipalities. I mean, it's a trend to watch out for. It's not just the left that is against these data centers or just AI progress. I mean, you could easily have Republicans that are just like, why should we increase electricity prices for ChatGPT to make more money? And it's something that the tech companies are going to have a real good plan to navigate politically. Tesla right there, 442, Palantir 171, Hoodie 112, UNH 339, and then Bitcoin just below 90,000. All right, so I guess we'll see by market close what turns out. It doesn't even feel like a Friday today. It honestly does not feel like that, but it is a Friday. By the end of the day, I guess we'll see if this trend continues, even though I don't even know if we have a real trend today, to be honest, outside of semis up and max 7 down. Silver, by the way, lost its entire pump. Silver is not red, but it's basically break even. Gold has officially turned red. So silver, once again, 4 or 5% up and down every day. Feels like a Monday, right? Yeah, it feels like the price action definitely feels like Monday. And then Amazon right there down 2.27%. All right, guys, I'll be back at the close. A weird way to open up 26, but then again, the end of 2025 was also pretty weird. So a lot of that weirdness just continuing. BMNR up 11, S&P flat, Amazon and Meta down 2%. I mean, don't know if people expected this to be the open for January, but that's what we're seeing. And quite frankly, a lot of it could be tax loss selling or capital gain selling in terms of people taking those profits. A lot of it could just be algos going back and forth on a Friday, Zeta back to 20. SaaS names all went down together. It's almost like the market decided SaaS needs to go down another 5%. Semis need to go up 5%, even though that was the trend in 2025. So it's like they were just continuing the trend for the beginning of the year. Tesla going down 3%. Like a lot of this stuff might not be something you can trust right now. NVIDIA just below 190 right here. All right, we'll be back on the close. We'll see what happens. We'll have Steve on the show, see what he thinks. But realistically, I think Monday is when we get a lot more data, or at least we get a lot more participation to see how the market is going to begin acting. Q4 numbers start January 14th. January 14th. And there's no top line headline. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's a simple headline for today's wonky price action back and forth. Like there's no thing to point to. Trump didn't say anything crazy. Like just a Friday to open out 2026. And this is the price action you're getting. All right, word of the day. What do we got? Word of the day. Let's see what we can get. This is the first word of the day of the new year. Of course. Well, it's not sagacious, but it's similar. Sagacity or sagacity? Let's see how this sounds first. Please tell me this is sagacity and not sagacity. Why does this have to be the first one of the year, bro? They're really not helping me beat the allegations. I'm going to hope it's sagacity and not the other one.
Sagacity.
Okay, there we go, baby. We're close. It's a new year. We got to beat the allegations this year. His sagacity showed not in bold predictions, but in the quiet decisions that compounded over time, wisdom that comes from experience, sound judgment, and practical intelligence. Okay. So hopefully we all can get more wisdom that comes from the experience of navigating the equity markets. Sagacity, not sagacity. Sagacity. That's what we got. All right. Well, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody. I'll be back on the close. We'll see how this price action continues out, and then we will keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year. I will see you guys on the market close. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.